Donington Park plays host to the 6th round of the 2019 British GT Championship, and if that didn't whet your appetite for the 2 hours of racing ahead, I don't know what will. We've had a sensational season so far of racing in both the GT3 and the GT4 categories. No clear favourites really emerging, particularly in GT4. Certainly in GT3, the Barwell Lamborghinis have had a strong start to the season, but that all started to unravel at Silverstone last time out as well. So it's all to play for with 2 hours of racing on this, the first of 2 visits to the Donington Park Grand Prix circuit this year. This is the new round, the summer round of the championship that's been added for this season. We're back here as ever for the traditional season decider at the end of the season. Cars making their way around to the grid then, where once they are there, we'll be able to hand over to Andy J, who is as ever in amongst all of the action. Up here in the box though, Andy McEwen here to talk you through everything on the track, and joining me once again, I'm delighted to say, is Joe Osborne. Joe, you were last with us at Snetterton. There we had the 2 1-hour sprint races. This one may be a 2-hour race, but it's still very much a sprint, isn't it? This is such a competitive field, you can't relax for a moment.
Yeah, 100% right. There's no holds barred and no punches pulled in these races, even though it's twice the length of the sprint race, like you said, that we have at Snetterton and Alton. You still need to push hard, and it's split down the middle, so you've got 1 hour each basically. So the amateurs starting if it's a Pro-Am car, or the slightly slower silver car guy in that one, and then the pros get in halfway through, pit stop, fuel and tyres, and we all go again. So yes, it's 2 hours, but it's still 2 1-hour sprints, and everyone is pushing hard, and you can't afford to lose a second at any point.
No, absolutely, and this should be a really, really interesting race, because qualifying yesterday was disrupted slightly. We had a red flag for the first time in living memory in the pro part of the qualifying session. Essentially, the pro drivers have a session to themselves, the AMs have a session to themselves, and it is the combined lap time of the fastest laps by each driver that sets the grid. But we had a red flag in the AM session. Not all of the AMs got their lap in time, and so we've got rather a jumbled order, which sees the 47 TF Sport Aston Martin, which will be started by Graham Davidson. Johnny Adam will take over at the pit stop, starting on pole position. And Joe, if ever there was a team who are looking for redemption, it's the 47 TF Sport squad, because they arguably should have won the race at Silverstone, certainly should have been top 2, tangled with a GT4 Mustang with 5 minutes to go, and it cost them dear. They really need to bounce back today, don't they?
Yeah, massively from a championship perspective, but also like a mental outlook for Graham Davidson. Puts a lot into his racing, and to lose a result like they did and in the manner they did at Silverstone, he's going to be super pumped, I would have said, to get on the front foot. And we've seen him do some amazing stints already in his short British GT career, Davidson, and he could quite easily try and get his head down and go. The guy next to him, Michael Igoe, new to the championship this year, brilliant qualifying from him. However, in warm-up, he put it in the gravel, and his first lap since that will be the first lap of the race. So it's going to be an interesting, cagey start from the front row.
And that's difficult, I'd imagine, for a pro driver to be able to get back in the mindset and build that confidence up in the car that it's not going to do the same thing again on cold tyres. Michael is not a pro driver, so what would, if you were his pro teammate, what would you be saying to him ahead of this race to try and build that confidence back up?
I would have hopefully just done a master reset on him, so turned him off and on, shown him his lap from qualifying yesterday, how good it was, what he did right, and just build the positive up in that way, and just almost not even mention what happened in warm-up, completely ignore it, and then next time you need to give him a bit of a negative, then you would bring it up.
Well, it's going to be fascinating to see how they get on. That red Lamborghini really starred at Silverstone last time out, and we expect more of the same here today. Well, as you can see, it's a very, very busy grid. Lots of cars there, 40 cars due to take the start, and lots of people down there enjoying the atmosphere as well. Amongst them, as ever, is Andy J. Andy, what's it like down there?
I'll tell you what, Andy, it is fantastic, actually. There's a really lovely atmosphere. You know, sometimes on the British GT grid before the race, obviously you've got all the fans that come on and they get really excited, but generally you can kind of sense some nerves, whereas right now, there's just a level of excitement. None more so, of course, than the cool, calm and collected Mr. Johnny Adam here. Now, the last time we spoke to Johnny was at the last race when you were on pole, and it kind of all went wrong with a few minutes to spare. Are you okay to talk to me now?
Yeah, I'm made up with you. Yeah, no, it's good position today. Obviously, pole again. Graham's lap was really good yesterday, really strong, and the car really suits Donington really well. The Aston really does suit the sweeps of Donington. So we'll see. You know, we're in the prime position, no pit stop penalty. So yeah, we'll try and get a good result today.
Are you going to be avoiding Mustangs at all costs?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's one of those. It was just. It was going to be a great fight right to the end, and unfortunately we got caught out, and but more importantly we lost quite a few points. So today the plan is to try and obviously bag as many points as we can. Yeah, and the car's been strong all weekend, so 4 races to go, obviously, from today, so we need to really make sure we score as many as we can.
It's must win, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the championship's quite different now. Obviously, the Lamborghini started so strongly at the start of the year, and I think now the Aston is performing really well. You know, Graham's really got his head around the car, TF are doing a great job with the car, and it's nice to show the potential of this new Aston this year. So our goal is to try and win as much as we can for the rest of the year. Enjoy the year. The grid is very competitive this year. Good number of GT3 cars, and see how the championship unfolds from there.
All right, thanks, Johnny. Enjoy it. Have fun, guys. I'm going to see if I can find Ross Gunn, who's going to be jumping in a GT3 car for Beechdean. So let me see if I can find him. I'll just throw back to you for a minute, if that's all right, Andy.
Yeah, Ross Gunn, who is the super sub this weekend in the number 99 Beechdean Aston Martin, running in the GT3 category. And Ross Gunn, who has had success before with the Beechdean squad in British GT, but yeah, he is in for Marco Sorensen, who had a nasty accident at Le Mans. He was one of many of the drivers out there today who are factory drivers in the World Endurance Championship, for example. Marco had a bit of a nasty accident. He's more or less okay, but a bit beaten up, and so they brought in the super sub Ross Gunn, and there is the car that he will be piloting. Andrew Howard, though, as ever, will be taking the start. The Beechdean squad have had a bit of an up and down season so far, but they have qualified 6th on the grid for this race, Andy, so their prospects looking good for this one.
I think their prospects are looking really good, because I was going to say this young man, but actually since I've seen Ross, he's grown about 3 feet. So this old fella here is actually looking rapid.
Yeah, we've had a really good weekend so far. The car's been really strong. So we've had a lot of seat time recently. We had Le Mans last week, so both Andrew and I are very acquainted to everything. But yeah, it's been going very well so far.
I mean, you're tearing it up on this place, aren't you?
Yeah, I love this circuit. I was lucky enough to be involved in a lot of the GT4 development here, so I know the circuit pretty well, but you need a good car as well, and it was on form yesterday, and we had a really good race car as well in the practice session, so hopes are high, and Andrew's a very experienced guy as well, so I'm sure he'll do a good job as well.
If you guys get on the podium this time round, Marco Sorensen's going to be calling you going, "Oi, what's going on?"
Yeah, he's already been texting me and saying, "Oh, how's the pace and everything?" But yeah, I hope he's going to be better soon. He's got a few health things to look after, and then he'll be back and stronger than ever.
All right. Listen, good luck. It's lovely to see you back.
Yeah,
you need to come back more often. All right, take care.
Bye-bye.
Of course, fellas, as you know, I've got to get down to GT4. And Joe, I'm wondering if you could do a wrap or something, because it's a bit of a hike, and I just need you to fill some time, if that's all right.
I think maybe we can come up with a better solution. I don't know, what are your wrapping skills? No, never mind. Let's talk about GT4 instead, shall we? In GT3 it's competitive. In GT4 it's been mind-boggling how close it's been. 2 points separate the 57 HHC McLaren of Dean McDonald and Callum Poynton from the number 15 Multimatic Motorsports Ford Mustang of Scott Maxwell and Seb Prio, and they're 1 point clear of Kelvin Fletcher and Martin Plowman, who've had a real standout season in the GT4 Beechdean Aston Martin. So McLaren, Ford, Aston Martin, Mercedes, Porsche, Audi have been strong as well. Who do you pick in GT4? It's impossible to predict, surely.
Yeah, really difficult. I mean, I'm not biased, but I'd say that McLaren's the best car out there. But as we see the Mustang here, for me, I thought at the start of the season it was going to be too big. You see with the door open, it looks like they've got a spare ladder in there. I don't know if that's how they get up on the podium, but the thing's massive, but it's so well built. I had a good look round it earlier. I covered up my McLaren gear and just had a nosy round, and it is properly well built. And these are the same guys that build the Ford GT that races at Le Mans, so they've got a huge amount of experience, and also I think they've got a good budget, which helps. And we've seen Maxwell and Prio, they've teamed up for the first time, and they've just got on with it perfectly. Seems like they're on the same level, the car's always well balanced, and that's what you need in a team, especially at like a silver level where you both should be the same. Then life makes it a lot easier when you can both agree on the fundamentals.
No, absolutely. Well, let's head down then to that part of the grid where I believe Seb Prio has joined Andy J.
He certainly has, and I'm very lucky, because usually by the time I come to talk to Seb, he's disappeared off the grid, so we've managed to collar him this time. Seb, this isn't your first time on pole. I know this because I've tried to catch you several times. It's the first time we managed to chat, though. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm really feeling really good for the race. I mean, it was good to get pole position, you know, and Scott did a mega job too in qualifying. You know, this is our second pole, like you said, so it's a really good chance for us to win the race today. Feeling great.
I mean, the Mustang, people had a lot of question marks before Alton Park. They were like, oh, come on, what's a Mustang going to be like British GT? Turning out to be one heck of a car, isn't it?
I mean, it's an amazing car. I mean, it's a legendary car, and they've done Multimatics, Ford Performance have done a great car to design this beautiful, amazing machine, so it's really nice. And yeah, it's a shame that we haven't got the best POP, but it's great, so I'm really happy with the car, so it's amazing.
it's surprising that it's able to compete with the nimbleness of the McLarens as well, isn't it? Given it's such a muscle car.
Yeah, I mean that's what I think. It's got a really big frontal area. I mean, McLarens are really small compared to this, but the car is really good. It's got good downforce. It suits this track so much at Donington. You know, with the downforce and with the way it is, you know, it just suits the car, and yeah, it does a great job really compared to the other cars out on track.
Brilliant. 120 minutes to look forward to. Are you buzzing?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be great. I'm really looking forward to getting in the car. Shame I can't start, but I love it, so it's really good.
You'll get your turn.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's going to be good.
Brilliant. Enjoy it. Thank you. Happy days.
Thank you, guys.
Guys, I think we're getting cleared off the grid. I must say, Joe didn't even attempt a wrap, which I'm thoroughly disappointed by. But nonetheless, it's time to get excited, isn't it? Because we're about to go racing. You can tell from the hordes of people leaving that we're going to have to get off as well. So I wish you all a wonderful race, and I'll bring you whatever I can from the pits.
I'll do you a deal, Andy. If we get a lengthy safety car, I'll see what Joe's got up his sleeve. But until we're really struggling for something to fill with, we'll focus on the racing, I think, which is going to be sensational, isn't it? Donington Park, Joe, always produces really good racing. It's one of those circuits, it's a momentum circuit, isn't it? You tend to get big groups of cars quite close together, even in GT racing. What must be quite nice, actually, for some of the drivers is to arrive here and it not be the last round of the championship. So often we see, particularly teams like Barwell, Beechdean have been here in the past, Team Park Racing as well. And it's such a high-pressure environment as they try and fight for the championship. Now, OK, the points are still significant, but they can maybe enjoy the race a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely. And it's either super high pressure because you're in the championship hunt, or there's no pressure and you're out of it. And that's, I've been in both scenarios. And actually, when you're not in it, it's really hard race because you don't want to get in the way of the guys going for the championship. And also, you kind of got a little less motivation to do a few moves that there's no need to. Whereas here, everyone is in the championship. So everything counts, every point will be needed at the end of the season. So there's a huge amount of racing that's going to have to go on. And like you said, with the qualifying in GT3 having a red flag in, that's a massive curveball. So I think most of the GT3 grid is out of position. As is the 21 car, which I think was the only car that had a penalty from qualifying.
Yes.
I think there was a driver regulation infringement, so unfortunately in that car we've got Stuart Proctor and Mia Flewitt, both guys I know really well. Obviously a male and a female is a bit harder to blag to the officials that it was the right way around, so I don't think they could get away from that one. So I think those guys at the back are going to be coming through as well, which will make it interesting.
Yeah, they didn't nominate which driver was doing each session basically, so they got in trouble for that, and unfortunately their qualifying times deleted. They are sent to the back of the grid, and similarly the Ram Racing car in GT3 number 6 that brought out that red flag, the winners last time out at Silverstone, they seem to have this habit, don't they, of going from highs to lows. They qualified on pole at Alton Park, lasted a lap and a half, and then they were out. Then they missed Snetterton and came back and won at Silverstone. Well, they, unfortunately, because they brought out that red flag, both drivers did not get their laps in. The pro driver didn't anyway, and so therefore they go to the back of the GT3 grid. The number 6 car will also have a 20-second success penalty to serve in the pit stops, because the podium finishers in both classes from the previous race have to serve extra time in the pit lane. So for a GT3 car, a pit stop is 110 seconds, and then if you have a penalty, you add the time onto that. So 20 seconds for the number 6 car, which starts at the back of the GT3 grid. 15 seconds for car number 2, which is the Mark Farmer and Nicky Team shared machine. That starts 8th on the grid. And the Michael Igo started number 18 WPI Motorsport machine, which he'll hand over to Dennis Lind. That starts 2nd on the grid, but has a 10-second penalty. In GT4, 66 Team Park Racing Mercedes serves 20 extra seconds. The number 11 Beechdean AMR car of Kelvin Fletcher and Martin Plowman serves 15 seconds. The number 97 car has a 10-second penalty. That's the TF Sport Aston Martin, and 5 seconds because there's a completely new driver lineup in the number 19 squad, where we have Billy Johnson joining in for the first time and Sir Chris Hoy. But because both drivers are new, they have 5-second extra penalty in the pit lane. We'll come to all of that later on once the pit lane window opens. For now, though, let's revel in the sights and sounds of 40 GT cars heading around the Donington Park Grand Prix circuit on this warm-up lap. And a chance in a moment to have a look through the grid and the order in which they will line up. And we'll try and give you the start drivers as well. The AM driver will start in any of the Pro-Am entries, and so Graham Davidson it is who will pilot the 47 TF Sport Aston Martin from pole position. Michael Igo in the WPI Motorsport Limited Lamborghini alongside him. Sean Balfe in the McLaren that was robbed a podium finish at Silverstone. They start 3rd, with Adam Ballon in the number 72 car, the championship leading Barwell machine, starting 4th. Sam Dahan in the car that's 2nd in the points is 5th on the grid, ahead of Andrew Andrew Howard in the Beechdean Aston Martin. Row number 4 of the grid then is shared by Ollie Wilkinson in the Silver Cup entered Optimum Motorsport Aston Martin, and Mark Farmer. It's all Aston Martin row 4. Mark Farmer, the TF car, lines up 8th. Then it's the first of the Century Motorsport BMWs, number 9 of Dominic Paul, number 3 of Dominic Paul, ahead of Rick Parfitt Jr., also a car I expect to gain ground in this opening stint. Richard Neary in the Team ABBA racing car is 11th. J.M. Littman is back in the number 9 Century Motorsport BMW, ahead of Glyn Geddy, another one of the silver cars that ought to have been further up the order and probably would have been without that red flag. Then Seamus Jennings in the All-Am driver line at Porsche. In Loggy is the last of the GT3 cars because of the fact that Callum McLeod didn't get a lap in qualifying. Then Scott Maxwell, pole position in GT4. Josh Smith for Tolman Motorsport is second in class, with Callum Poynton sharing that row with him, the third of the GT4 category. Next up, Jacob Mathiasen in the Century Motorsport 42 BMW, with Nick Jones in the Team Parker Racing 66 Mercedes, that's had success already this year. Calvin Fletcher, third in the championship, lines up next alongside Lewis Proctor, who is also a championship contender. He and Jordan Collard, 5th in points. Andrew Gordon-Colebrook and Ash Hand are next up, BMW alongside Aston Martin. Then Alex Toth-Jones and Patrick Mathieson, former Ginetta Junior runner in the Optimum Motorsport car. Jack Butel, his teammate, is next alongside Josh Price in the other of the GT4 TF cars. Then Sir Chris Hoy in the Mustang, Senan Fielding in the Stellar Performance Audi that won on its debut. Then Graham Johnson and Tom Jackson as we get towards the back of this enormous field. Mark Murfitt and Ben Hurst are next. The rest of the grid will file through below you, with the Balf Motorsport car at the back, as we mentioned, because of that procedural issue ahead of qualifying. So 120 minutes, a mandatory pit stop and driver change for every car. Aston Martin, Lamborghini and McLaren, the top 3 positions filled by 3 different makes of car. This is going to be a phenomenal 6th round of the 2019 British GT Championship. Graham Davidson and Michael Igoe sharing the front row. The red lights go out. We're away and racing for 2 hours. A good start made by Andrew Howard, also by Sam Dahan in the number 69 Lamborghini as they go 3 at rest towards Redgate Corner for the first time. But it will be the Aston Martin of Davidson that leads them into the turn. Right around the outside is going Andrew Howard from 6th on the grid. Finds himself squeezed over the curb. So too Ian Loggy further back. There's a bit of bumping and boring in the midfield. Let's hope they all keep it clean. Down through the Craner curves for the first time, and Davidson getting away. In the end, Andrew Howard has settled into 4th position, and here comes Ollie Wilkinson. Keep an eye on him in the silver Aston Martin in 6th place. He, as well as the number 7 Bentley, they are the 2 silver cars that should, in a way, have the edge here in the early stint. Well, a clean start, Joe, and I'll tell you what, Andrew Howard, sometimes he is one of the more cautious drivers at the start, because he's very much about keeping the car in one piece, but through caution to the win there, was very nearly into 3rd place.
That was an amazing start from Andrew Howard. As you said, to jump both Barwell cars is no mean feat, and he did that easily, so it was like he was on an ice cream delivery. I think we're seeing a bit of fuel coming out the back of one of the cars. They have to start so full, the fuel tanks. When it gets a bit warm, it starts to breathe, so nothing too bad, won't be slippy, and it won't do too much harm to the environment, hopefully.
Right, that was on board with the 72 car, I believe. There is the GT4 leader, and it is still the number 4 of Josh Smith, I think, that's in front. Ollie Wilkinson up the inside of Sam Dahan there, so that's 5th place now. The silver driver arguably quicker than the AM drivers around him, but of course in the second stint it's another silver driver that takes over that car, with the pros jumping into the others, so it ebbs and flows. But the 96 Aston Martin ought to be making ground now amongst these AM drivers around, who themselves do a stunning job. Ollie Wilkinson definitely on the move here. So too in 3rd place is Sean Balfe, who looks a bit quicker than Michael Igoe at the moment. It's all allowing Graham Davidson to pull out a 1.6 second margin at the end of the opening lap of the race. Brilliant stuff. Lamborghini versus McLaren for 2nd position. Igoe and Balfe there nose to tail. Andrew Howard is 4th, Ollie Wilkinson 5th, Sam Dahan 6th ahead of his teammate Adam Ballon, the championship leader. Again, Barwell not having quite the pace here this weekend that they enjoyed in the early part of the season. But Joe, they've not driven into each other on the first lap, which is always a plus.
Yeah, 100% better than Silverstone, and I know Mark Lemmer briefed his 2 drivers on not what to do, obviously after they did it very well at Silverstone, taking each other out. I'm sure he won't be particularly happy because they are still nose to tail, and they look very similar pace. It's going to be hard for them, but for them, they've got to get the car to their pros, I think, if they're going to get a good result here. They've got to look after it and get the pros in, both super quick Phil Keane and Johnny Cochran in those cars respectively. And we see GT4, it looks like Smith's got in front and McDonald's got in front of Maxwell, so that's a good start for both McLaren. To be interested to see where the pace is for those cars. Some cars start quicker, the tyres are ready, and others will get better as the stint goes on. But GT4 looks pretty close across all the brands. Looks like the BOP is working well across GT4.
Yes, and it's working particularly well for McLaren at the moment, or something is, because Callum Poynton, as you said, is into second place now. So the Mustang of Scott Maxwell that started second is down to third. And all three of these cars in the top three are very much title contenders. Andrew Gordon-Colebrook appears, no, it's the other Century BMW, excuse me, of Jacob Mathiasen, who is in fourth position, and then Kelvin Fletcher in the number 11 Aston Martin is in fifth position. So they are your front runners in GT4 as they make their way towards the hairpin. Bit wide there for the 57 of Callum Poynton. Hooks up the second apex though, keeps that Mustang at bay. Two more different cars you couldn't hope to see here. Where does the Mustang have the edge, and where, oh hang on, back to that in a moment. There's been an issue, I fear, for, yeah, it is, isn't it? It's the number 2 car, Mark Farmer. He should not be amongst these GT4 cars, but Mark Farmer has had a moment somewhere in the early stages, a bit like we saw from him at Alton Park, unfortunately. And the number 2 GT3 Aston Martin is already having to carve its way past the GT4 cars, but not for position. I mean, Nicky Team has had a bit of a frustrating season with Mark this year, but they are still doing quite well in the championship, aren't they? They need to try and cut out these early errors, though, don't they?
Yeah, unfortunately, they've kind of used up their lives already with the bad results they had at Alton Park and Snetterton, so they need a clean run if they're looking at the championship, and I'm not sure what happened there, but that is going to be a hard place to recover from now. To get past probably 10 GT4 cars, each one will cost him a bit of time. He's going to be well off the pace. So the only thing they can pray for now is a safety car, and Nicky has a good stint and can haul them back up. But when British GT is that competitive, there's no room for error, obviously, and that's a big error that he's unfortunately made. And I spoke to him this morning, he was so upbeat. I had a lovely conversation in the toilet, and every place to catch up. And yeah, he was loving life, but struggling with the new Aston Martin. He had got so well in with the old car, big V12, no turbos. This one, he says, very pitch sensitive, which sounds very technical, but basically when the aerodynamics starts to shift, the car's becoming a little bit leery for him, and I think that might be what's happened to him there on the opening laps.
Well, that is a shame, but contrasting fortunes, his teammate car is pulling away now. 2.8 seconds up the road is Graham Davidson from this fight for second place, which is very much a three-way affair now, because Ollie Wilkinson is carrying good pace, as you'd expect. New fastest lap set last time around, but only a few hundredths quicker than Davidson, whose qualifying lap, we have been told, was actually below the existing lap record set by Nicky Team. That's how quickly Graham Davidson was going yesterday in qualifying, and only this man, Ollie Wilkinson, is going quicker than him at the moment. He's flashing the lights because he knows he has to make progress now. It's a short-term gain having the silver in for the first stint, and then you have to anticipate that car might lose pace in the second stint, so any ground he can gain now will be pivotal.
Yeah, he's got to find the time for his teammate Bradley Ellis, who super quick, former British GT champion, but he's lumbered with 30 extra kilos of weight compared to the other cars. So when he's up against these super quick factory drivers anyway, he's then got to carry another 30 kilos. So Ollie's got to find the time for Brad to give him half a chance. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how Ollie deals with this, because Sean's quicker than I go, and it's the wrong way round. They all need to swap round. So Sean, being race smart in the McLaren, I think probably won't fight Wilkinson too much, and will hopefully follow him through. As we see Andrew Howard have to get on the defensive now after his mega start. He's now having to do some hard work defending. That's always the problem when you make a few positions. You sometimes have to defend back from them and give yourself some work to do.
Well, the 69 Lamborghini did out-qualify the 99 Aston Martin, but only by one position. Oh, Century Motorsports woes continue. I'm afraid that's J.M. Littman in the number 9 car that's gone around at Goddard. Now, he may have stalled the car. He may also just be unsure of whether the track is clear, although I think it may be the former, because the track is very much clear and it's still not going anywhere. And now the GT4 pack have arrived. If he can't get going, I fear we may go safety car here. We went 3 hours at Silverstone without a safety car and still had a grandstand finish. But J.M. Littman, unfortunately, has gone around. Now, let's see if we can pick out what's happened. Ooh, there was some assistance there, wasn't there?
Yeah, it looks like Ian Logie gave him a bit of a ramp in the Ram Racing car. Obviously, where the name come from. Hard to say without seeing earlier on where Ian was, if it was a fair move that the door then got closed, or it was optimistic. Great that he's got going, and good work by the GT4 cars. That's a super blind corner. That's not only a 180-degree hairpin, but down a hill. And if you're in a left-hand drive car, like most of the cars are, the blind spot's huge, so everyone's done well to avoid it. And luckily, no safety car.
goes past the Stuart Proctor started Balf Motorsport GT4 McLaren. So now we've got the JM Lippmann BMW, the number 9 car, and the number 2 car, and now also the number 8 car that's going to be out of position because unfortunately around has got Richard Neary. I think that's the chicane, isn't it? Yeah, just coming out onto the Grand Prix loops. The number 8 car that had been running in 8th position has gone around. That means that Rick Parfitt is promoted up a position, so too Dominic Paul in the other Century Motorsport BMW. It's a 2-hour race, this, and these are quite a lot of mistakes that we're seeing in the early stages, and we keep saying it because it's so competitive, because there's not that high likelihood of safety cars these days in this championship because of the very high driving standards. You can't really be making these mistakes, can you?
No, definitely. It's heartbreaking. As the pro, when you're sharing, you need to build your AM up confidence-wise, and sometimes, depending on the AM, you kind of wind them up, give them like kids' blue Smarties before parties to make sure they're fun. And sometimes you get the negative of that, of pushing a bit too hard too early, and you have a spin, you're definitely out the race. But if Neary was a second or two slower because Tom Onzogol hadn't got him in the right place, they're also out the race. So it's a massive balancing act of risk versus reward when you're pushing to the limit. As we see Parfitt getting down the inside, looks like he should get that.
Oh, that's
clean. Geddy.
Yeah, Glyn Geddy's gone around. He was trying to get up the inside of Dominic Paul, and another GT3 car is now pointing the wrong way, this time at Coppice, and thankfully the car gets going again. I was about to mention Rick Parfitt though, because he's into 7th now, gained 2 places on the previous lap, one as a result of Richard Neary's spin, and the other one because he overtook Adam Ballon. Your thoughts, Joe?
Racing instinct is my gut instinct. I think they both obviously knew about each other, Glyn more than the BMW there, but the BMW gave him enough space. It's just as the car goes light over the crest, the contacts happened at the worst point, the rear of the car's light, and it's just loose ground. And yeah, now Glyn's got to get his head down. There's always going to be like a subcategory of GT3 races here. People have spun, but then at the front of that part, as we see, actually this battle hasn't quite spiced up as much as I thought it was going to be, as we're seeing cars transform, tyre and fuel load starting to wear off, as we see an incident involving 9 and 6.
That's the Ram Racing car 6 of Ian Logie, and the Century Motorsport number 9 BMW JM Lippmann, not a huge surprise. Here's Class B of the GT3 category now. The number 8 car of Richard Neary ahead of number 7 of Glyn Geddy. Glyn, a former touring car star, and I remember speaking to Ryan Ratcliffe, his co-driver, ahead of the Silverstone race. I said, so who's going to start the race? And he said, oh, we're going to put Glyn in. He's the feistier of the two of us, and maybe a bit too feisty that time around. So a bit of contact between those two, and the Bentley goes around. Their third place in Class B is Mahal Farmer, a little bit further back. With news from the pit lane now, I believe. What have you got for us, Andy J?
It's not a case of what I've got for you, it's who. Nicky Team's here. Nicky, obviously we've seen Mark, well, he's not in the greatest of positions right now. What's actually happened?
I haven't watched, I haven't talked to Mark what happened. Yeah, intense start, I guess, is outside there in the AM. I see a lot of cars spinning, so I guess that's just something on the track. But I'll have a chat with him afterwards, and then, yeah, drink a beer on it. I don't know. Probably get a beer now already.
Well, it makes your job a lot harder, doesn't it?
Yeah, on top of that, we got this 15-second penalty from the second place in Silverstone, so it's definitely not going to make it easier. But who knows, it's 2 hours, so maybe there's going to come a safety car or a bomb strike is going to come in, I don't know, to maybe catch us up again. But let's see, just go out there and have some fun.
Enjoy it, mate. Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Well, good to see Nicky Team a little more reserved in his thoughts than we have seen maybe earlier on in the season. It's frustrating though, isn't it? As the pro driver, you want to be a bit of a cheerleader for your AM driver, don't you? But sometimes this is racing, it does get frustrating. Let's see, I think we can see in the distance maybe what happened here to Mark Farmer. We didn't see how it started, but it was a spin into the gravel trap. A harmless spin, but how frustrating is it if you're Nicky Team? You know, you're trying to play the team game, you're trying to be diplomatic about it all, but Nicky came into this season as one of the championship favourites, so too did Mark, and it's just not worked out for them.
Yeah, it's super difficult, and unfortunately, without being too cold about it, you've got to remember who the paymaster is. He works for Aston Martin, he's a factory driver, Mark's a great customer of them, and he needs to keep them happy. And the thing I always used to have to tell myself before I ripped their head off when they made a mistake was that they're not doing it on purpose. They're not being bad to annoy you, but we need to educate and never make the same mistake twice. That's when you can try and take the positive from that and move on from there. And Nicky's obviously one of the world's best GT drivers, so for him to kind of have to get used to racing with an AM is very difficult. When a pro messes up, you tell each other you've messed up and you move on. With an AM, you have to sugarcoat it and be a bit more friendly, and as we see the Mustang having a look down on the 95 of an unscheduled pit stop.
Yeah, this is early, unfortunately, for Josh Price, former BTCC ace in the number 95 car, and it looks like there's maybe been some contact or damage of the front end. This is the fight for second place in GT4, also for second place in GT4 Silver, because the top 4 cars in GT4 outright are all Silver Cup entrants, which means they carry a bit more weight than the other cars, and they spend a bit longer in the pit lane. The weight, though, not slowing down the Mustang there. A great change of direction, and Scott Maxwell is up the inside of Callum Poynton's HHC McLaren, and that should be a fairly straightforward move. The question will be whether or not Jacob Mathiasen can go through as well in the 42 BMW. He's alongside, but the next corner is a left-hander, and so it looks as though maybe Callum Poynton might be able to stem the flow at just one position lost. The McLaren good on the brakes. The BMW, though, Jacob Mathiasen not lacking in confidence, goes right round the outside. Can't quite make it stick. Now, perhaps unsurprisingly, a stop-go penalty has been applied now for car number 6. That's Ian Logie in the Ram Racing car, the winners from Silverstone last time out. That we have to assume is for that contact they had with the BMW. 35 is off now as well. I said it would be a 2-hour sprint. That's Jack Butel, who started the Optimum Motorsport GT4 car, and he is off at Goddard's as well. We sort of predicted a lively start to the race, but there is a lot more going on than I expected. It is a 2-hour sprint race, but 2 hours is long enough that you can take it easy for the first 10 minutes at least, surely.
Yeah, I'm a bit tired already, so I wish they'd all calm down a bit. Interesting to see how much Maxwell's checked out already, so he's got to try and get his pole position back off Josh Smith in the 570 McLaren. Interesting to see if Vittel can get out of that position, because he was going to have to find reverse, and when the racing car's hot, the gearbox doesn't particularly like going in a different direction, so hopefully he can, because otherwise that would have to be a safety car to recover that. And I think we're just seeing such a fast pace from everyone. There's a battle everywhere. When you've got 40 cars on a 4-kilometre circuit, there's a lot of action that's going to be going on, and even when the cars are kind of finding their natural pace, they then will change, as we see here. Looks like we're going to get another overtaking to the Melbourne hairpin. Such a good overtaking spot. The 5th gear all the way down to 1st gear in the majority of cars, so the delta of speed being so big opens itself to overtaking, and nice clean move. And in the GT4s, actually, everyone's been super well behaved so far, so now I've cursed that, we'll start seeing each other fire each other off.
Well, so far so good at least. That was a nice move made by Jacob Mathiasen. He's into the podium places now, and a podium will go down rather well for Century Motorsport in either GT3 or GT4. They're not too fussy. They were arguably the dominant team last year in GT4, but of course new driver lineups this year, and sometimes that takes a bit of bedding in, I guess, and they've had their dramas. There's the number 3 Century Motorsport BMW in GT3. That's Dominic Paul, running in 9th place at the moment. This is the fight for 7th place, because we've got Andrew Howard now ahead of Adam Ballon. That's been a change on this lap. The Beechstein Aston Martin back ahead of the 72 Barwell car. They've swapped positions a couple of times in this race already, and they might do so again if Adam Ballon has anything to do with it. Has a look at the inside, but to no avail. Runs wide on the grass then on the exit of Goddard's. Incidentally, the Jack Butel car has rejoined. It may have only gone as far as the pit lane, but it has at least gone out of harm's way. As into traffic now goes this 4-way fight, which is about to become a 3-way fight, because the back of it is Ian Logie there, the blue and silver Mercedes, which has this stop-go penalty to serve for the contact with the other Century Motorsport BMW. So I'm sure Dominic Paul will be quite grateful to see the Mercedes disappear from his wing mirrors. That was a good move there by Andrew Howard. He's slow off the old head, and as a result, this is Adam Ballon's opportunity to come back at him, and possibly even Dominic Paul could benefit from this in the BMW, which, Joe, I expected to go quite well here. This is a circuit that generally seems to favour front-engine cars, of which that BMW is one. They've had a trying season so far, but they are looking a bit racier here today. Yeah, definitely. I think it's a new car to Century, so there's lots of learning. The first 2 sectors of Donington are brilliant for the BMW, being fast and flowing, long wheelbase, nice and stable. Unfortunately, where they've added the GP loop, as we see him get the move done, the straight line speed, that BMW is pretty impressive. Gets it stopped, should hook up the apex on the left nicely, stays on the track, perfect. Yeah, the last sector is a chicane and 2 hairpins, where a front engine car isn't as strong on traction, so might get a good demonstration of it here as Paul goes in deep. Alan's going to look for the cutback, nice traction out of the Lambo. But the BMW probably just has enough turbo power, it looks like, to keep the inside line and should stay safe. Ballon will get another go, same move, but in mirror image around the last corner. And the problem is, actually, for these guys, they're losing time now to Howard, who seem to be holding them both up, as we see Ian Logie come for his drive-through. So he's going to turn into that GT3 Class B race, I think, with that. 3 corners side by side for these two, and this time maybe the switchback might work for Ballon, because finally he's got 2 right-handers in a row. He's up the inside at Hollywood, but the BMW, as you said, has good grip in a straight line. just about hands
Lamborghini's
on.
so loud I could hear it actually hit the limiter out of there, so I think Balin just missed a shift. It's easy enough to do, the rev lights are telling you, but you've still got to pull the paddle at the right point, and as soon as you hit the limiter you're going to lose 2 or 3 tenths, and that's probably settled that argument for now anyway.
Right, out of the pit lane, having lost their argument with the clock, of course, goes the Ram Racing Mercedes, which rejoins, I think, in the lead of Class B now. I think it's lost slightly less time than those that have had spins, but Ian Logie will be frustrated, no doubt. Rejoins just in front of some of the lead GT4 contenders. We're going to have a Class C battle soon, aren't we? Because J.M. Lippmann's had his second moment of the race now, and has slipped even further back. The number 9 BMW this time at the chicane. And he's now, I think, gone a full lap down, hasn't he? Yes, he has, to some of the other GT3 cars. A day to forget then for that particular branch of the SRO Motorsports squad. He rejoins, in fact, or just in front of Rick Parfitt Jr., who is a lap ahead of him, essentially. Right then, now it gets really busy. If it hadn't been exciting enough already, the race leading, or the front-running GT3 cars, now well amongst the front-running GT4s. And that was a close moment for Sean Balfe there, as he tried to go on the inside of the TF Sport Aston Martin. Could this be Ollie Wilkinson's chance to finally make this move stick? Yeah,
it's all about trying to read the situation here and getting the momentum flow. So Wilkinson will be looking at Balfe in front of the McLaren to see if he's going to get held up and actually he can carry a momentum through. It's always hard when you're the first car of your group to open up the gap. The GT4s are having their own race and they haven't got any grip left to keep the car a bit tighter, and they don't want to lose any time, and they shouldn't have to. So we've actually seen Polly's been a bit unluckier with the traffic than Sean, because Sean's gone, but then Michael Igo in the Lambo's gone even further. So you're going to see massive lap time splits now, like 3 or 4 seconds, and it's not really anyone's fault. It's just how the traffic flows to you. And when it's going well, you feel like a hero and you're doing everything right. When it's going wrong, it's bad luck and it's not your fault, and then frustration can set in, and then mistakes kind of follow quite quickly after that. And it's very easy to finish both your races with a GT4 car. Although slower, the GT4 cars are heavier, they're more road cars, so when you hit one in a GT3, it really hurts, it does a lot of damage, so you have to be careful when you pick your way through there.
Some circuits are easier than others, aren't they, to negotiate the traffic? And we look at Donington Park and we think, well, it's a nice wide circuit, there's bags of room for them, but because it's such a momentum circuit and there are so many high-speed corners through which the GT3 cars have quite an advantage in speed, does that actually make it a bit more difficult, particularly for the GT4 cars, to spot the quicker cars coming?
Yeah, 100%. Like I was saying, Melbourne Hairpin being a great overtaking spot because of the big braking zone from turn 1 all the way through to the back chicane. There's really not a big stop, so you don't have that speed difference there. The only thing the GT3s really have is the aero grip, but then as soon as you've been slowed down by the GT4, you've then lost that. So you'll see here, it should be able to go around the outside and be fine, but then he's going to be offline for the next corner, and you've got to try and compromise there. So he's probably even lost 2 or 3 tenths there on just one car that couldn't have done a better job of getting out of his way. So we're going to start to see that lead ebb and flow. And I said, look, looks like Michael Igo's had a good rub of the green so far with the GT4 traffic. And then you'll find it clear the leader. So Graham's only got 2 more GT4s to go. But then the back markers of GT4 get more and more spread out. And before you kind of know it, 40 minutes into the race, they're all equidistance apart from each other. So you're lapping 3 or 4 every lap. So the concentration levels start to get harder and harder. A hot day, mistakes start to come in bit by bit. So it's definitely hard work, multi-class racing. Yeah, absolutely. Track temperature, by the way, about 26 degrees at the moment, so a bit cooler than it was earlier on. Got a restart of the start, replay of the start here then. So Andrew Howard there getting that good start from 6th place. Brilliant top-board footage there from the back of the Lamborghini. He goes right around the outside at the first corner, and we're hearing maybe there was a bit of paint traded between the two of them. Oh yes, there was, and he's lost a wing mirror. Now, I suppose that won't be quite as essential as if he was a GT4 car. He won't have to use the mirrors quite as much, I guess, but Andrew Howard in robust fashion there, moving his way forward, and we made the point that that's not something we can always say about Andrew. He's sometimes a bit more cautious at the start, but that's benefited him really, because although he's fallen back down to 7th place now, oh, drama for the championship leaders. That is Adam Ballon, the number 72 Lamborghini, that has gone around down at the Melbourne Hairpin. Now, where were they running? They were running in 9th position, so it hadn't been a brilliant start to the race for the Barwell squad, but for the 2nd race in a row, at least one of the Barwell cars this time in strife early on. Now, he's not diving for the pit lane. He's rejoined just in front of Mark Farmer, which by my reckoning means he's 11th place now with Mark Farmer 12th. So it could have been worse in a way, but let's try and see what happened here, Joe. This is an absolute disaster for the championship leader, and it looks like there was contact. On the outside, he's going to be off the racing line, and I actually can't see if he's been hit or if he's just on the dirty bit of the track and the car's rotated. There was definitely contact afterwards, but I don't know if there was any that instigated the actual momentum of that spin.
Well, either way, the end result is that that car has been off the road and also shed some bits of bodywork from the rear right corner, so we'll have to keep an eye on whether or not his lap times are affected by that. But yeah, for the 72 car of Adam Ballon, started 4th on the grid at a circuit that Lamborghinis have had a sort of love-hate relationship with. In the past, we've seen Lamborghinis with Barwell Motorsport win races here, but how many times have we seen Barwell arrive at Donington Park for the championship decider and not win the championship? It's not always been a great hunting ground for the Lamborghini, and as you made the point earlier on, this new Lamborghini is an evolution of the original one, so we expect it to have many of the same characteristics, and Donington Park, a bit like Silverstone, just doesn't seem to suit it particularly well.
Yeah, he hit the nail on the head. Actually had lunch with John Minshaw. He very kindly bought me a free lunch that SRO provides, so that was good of him, and he's been in that position with Barwell for a few years where they come into the last round at Donington needing the luck and the performance of the car and just not quite having it. And yeah, it looks like that's kind of carried over to the Evo Lamborghini. It's just not quite as good as the Aston Martin as we see the Academy GT4 with front damage, and I think that was from the back of Ballon, but I don't think that was the cause of the problem. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be a long weekend for Ballon now to try and get this, and he'll just be thinking about his championship, and he's got to try and recover it. And Phil Keane, his teammate, will just be in the pits hoping and praying for a safety car, so all of these mistakes are negated, and he's got a sort of clean whip of it to try and get on the podium and get that championship moving in the right direction.
13th place battle makes its way down the Craner curves. This is Seamus Jennings in the all-AM driven Porsche, so that's why with just 2 AM drivers in the car, it's not necessarily right at the sharp end, but great to have Porsche back in both the GT3 and GT4 categories now of the British GT Championship. It's a stunning looking car. This is the number 33 machine, and it's being harried now by a fired up Ian Logie, who will be well and truly miffed with the way that his race has gone so far. He won't be particularly happy that he's not able to simply breeze past the Porsche, but in fairness to Seamus, he's doing nothing wrong. This is a genuine fight for position. They're both GT3 cars, although they run within different classes of the GT3 element of the race. And is this the chance maybe up the inside? The Mercedes is good in a straight line, but the Porsche, as it turns out, pretty good on the brakes. And they, oh no, after you, please. And they're still side by side of the exit of the corner. Wasn't it just? I don't think Ian Logie expected Seamus Jennings to make it as easy for him. He backed out of it, and then now Seamus decides that he's going to fight it a bit harder, runs a bit wide at the hairpin though, and surely now, finally, well, maybe not, because the next corner goes left again. The Porsche with its rear engine has good traction out of the tight corners, and Seamus Jennings putting up a real fight here. It's
kind of like the German car version of the Red Arrows, this. They're kind of in sync, so I think this battle will go on for a bit. Looks like he's caught the windscreen wiper as well, but that Porsche is a thing of beauty. First time we've had a 991 GT3 car in the championship. Maybe he's got a bit of rain that we don't know about. It looks like Loggie's got the move done. Can he get the cut back? We cut to another bit, but I don't think he will, and Loggie's got the pace now to pull away. As we see, Alpha's got on the back of Igo, and this is going to be interesting. If got a few laps of GT4 free traffic laps to see where their pace is at. Igo's going to be under pressure. Like we said, he caused a red flag in warm-up because of a spin. That'll be in the back of his mind. Sean doesn't really have to look in his mirrors too much at the moment. Looks like Wilkinson's got a few laps before he's got to get back on the tail of him. And knowing this car rather well with all the development in it, its biggest positive for sure is how easy it is to drive, but how good it is on its tyres. So we're nearly halfway through Sean's stint, but hopefully those Pirellis are hanging on and not losing any performance. Whereas the Lamborghini I've also raced is a little bit harder on its rears, as we see it slide into the apex there. And the problem is, as soon as the rear tyre starts to get too hot, it starts to slide. You slide, you generate more heat. You heat, you slide. And it's a vicious circle that you can't get out of until ultimately you get rid of those tyres. And that won't happen for another 35 minutes. So this battle could intensify with the degradation of the Lamborghini tyre, I think.
Yeah, I tend to agree, and it's telling as well that on the first lap for a while, Michael Igo has had to significantly defend from Jean Bal. He was nearly 2 seconds slower than the race leader. That gap had been creeping down between the 47 Aston Martin and the 18 Lamborghini. But now that he's defending and running wide at Coppice, he's losing time to the leader, he's losing time to the cars behind, and Sean Bal looks to try and get a better exit from Coppice corner, looking to the inside line. Straight line speed is good for the McLaren. There's just about a McLaren-sized gap up the inside, and Sean Balfe, after 25 minutes of trying, is finally into second place, and now we watch his lap times with interest. Can he do anything about Graham Davidson out in front? The gap's going to be just over 8 seconds, I reckon, between the two of them. Wilkinson up the inside as well, and took full advantage there. I reckon Igo probably lost his momentum, lost his rhythm a bit, and you've got to attack straight away and take advantage of that, and an experienced driver like Wilkinson would know that.
Yep, 100%, and Ollie's only in his third year of racing, I think it is, so that move was brilliant. That looked like it was right on the limit. I even kind of winced a bit. I didn't think it was going to get stopped, but that was perfect, and now he can get on the front foot, and those two, him and Sean, can see what pace they've got. Ollie's given it the old headlight flash, which as a driver there's nothing more infuriating, so that'll probably speed up Sean in the McLaren by a few tenths anyway to try and get away from him. And they've got to try and do something about Davidson. Davidson has done an amazing job here. He's 9 seconds ahead, and he's almost safe. If he can just pot around at that and hand the car over to Johnny Adam, no pit stop penalty. We all know how good Johnny Adam is round here in an Aston Martin. It's almost curtains on that, so it's now up to Sean and Ollie to try and make this race interesting for us in GT3.
Yes, don't forget the number 10 Lamborghini also has a 10-second success penalty, sir, but none of the other cars in this group are going to have to serve one.
So Rob, another McLaren factory driver, that is normally how he is 23 hours a day. When we're doing work, or when I'm doing work, he's exactly like that, stressing all his hair off.
Yes, he does look like a man under pressure, doesn't he? Sean Balfe, though, is certainly going to be pleasing his co-driver, because as soon as he's got into this second place, he is lapping fractionally quicker than the race leader. The starting point is 9 seconds, or 8.999 seconds to be precise, after 18 laps of racing. So we'll see if that keeps going down. He's done a personal best in the middle sector, which is half a second quicker than the race leading Aston Martin, so he's going the right way about it. The Optimum Motorsport Aston Martin there running wide over the debris of its teammate car as the GT3 Optimum machine goes through to put another lap on it. Ollie Wilkinson, by contrast, not quite as quick actually as Balfe on this lap, so Sean Balfe putting in a good stint out. Now he's in clean air. We're seeing exactly what pace he has. So approaching the half-hour mark then, Graham Davidson leads the way. In second place, Sean Balfe, though, has just set the new fastest lap. So the red McLaren that we're following, 1 minute 29.098 is the new fastest lap of the race, and he is only 7.4 seconds now off the race lead. That was 1.6 seconds quicker than the leading Aston Martin, so we've got a real fight on our hands here. Ollie Wilkinson third, Michael Igo fourth, and Sam Dahan fifth. Further back, the Ram Racing car is still fighting back from its stop-go penalty that it served. The car it's overtaking, I think, was Andrew Gordon Colebrook's number 43 Century Motorsport BMW. In GT4, by the way, Josh Smith has a 2/10 of a second lead now over Scott Maxwell. So Scott Maxwell has caught the GT4 leader. So it'll be interesting if we could pick those two up. We've got a real fight developing for the lead of that category as well. As is so often the case with the British GT Championship, you don't know where to look, because with 40 cars out there, 2 different categories of cars, there's always a battle somewhere to be had. And this one is the battle between, for 23rd place overall. This is the fight, though, for the lead in GT4, and Scott Maxwell is now with the McLaren. We wondered what pace he would have in clean air. He's showing that now, and going with him to an extent, Jacob Mathiasen in the BMW. Yeah,
this battle's really transformed. As we saw at the start, the McLaren made good, and Josh Smith got his head down. Maxwell's reeled him in now, so be interested to see if it's Maxwell's got that pace naturally in the car. He's had to work it hard and taken some life out of the tyres and the brakes, and basically got everything a bit hot. When things get hot, the performance drops, but I think what we saw earlier is it looks very strong in the mid-speed corner, so I think his opportunity is probably going to be down the back straight after the long sweeping corner of Coppice. It's probably his best spot. But I think Mathiasen looks like he's got great pace as well. Racing against that car last year, I know how good it is over a stint, and Nathan Parikh at Century has really got on top of that car, and it's a well-turned-out GT4, so quite see this becoming a three-way battle for the last part of this stint, as we see Neary just let him know he's there, and yeah, a bit of touchy-feely. I don't think anything will come of that, but yeah, that's standard GT3, GT4 miscommunication, and yeah, a bit of body language to make sure he knew he was there. Richard
Neary, by the way, in that number 8 Mercedes, has just gained 9th position. He overtook Glyn Geddy on the previous lap. Glyn is not happy about that and is pushing hard to try and get it back. Runs over the grass, but he knows that with the traffic incoming, he could have a chance to fight straight back as soon as he can. Down into the old hairpin. Josh Smith thankfully sees the Mercedes coming, but Geddy might just gain out of this, carries more speed out of the old hairpin, closes in on the Mercedes going through Starkeys and up the hill. And is there a chance of McLean's, I wonder? The big Bentley, it's got to be a big old gap that gets left on the inside to allow that car through, unless Glyn decides to try and make the gap a bit bigger. He's got a better exit from McLean's. He's looking to the inside at Coppice corner. This can often end in tears, but he's there. He's got to the apex first, and that's the corner where he spun after contact earlier on. And I think with that in his mind, he backed out of that particular move, and so Richard Neary hangs on. So those positions stay as they are. Behind them then are the top 3 in GT4, none of whom incidentally have a success penalty to serve, so that is a genuine race. They're all in the silver category as well, so their pit stops in theory between those 2 cars with the BMW in the background, this one, the GT4 car, will all be of the same length. The GT3 car we saw there was the recovering JM Lippmann car, which is a lap behind these 2 cars, the Mercedes and the Bentley, making their way out of Melbourne hairpin. So this fight for 9th place about to come through. At the head of the field in traffic, I suggest the gap is actually stabilising now between Graham Davidson and Sean Balfe. Around the outside of the GT4 leaders goes number 72, which is the Adam Ballon car, which is still 11th place. Now, is it catching the Neary and Geddy pair? No, not on the previous lap. Although, again, traffic may have had something to do with that. Seb Priaulx watches on nervously from the pit lane as his car debates the race lead. Now, how difficult is it? We refer all the time to how tricky dealing with traffic is for the GT3 cars. But we've got a battle for the GT4 lead here, and we're seeing that as the GT3 cars come through, that gap opens, then it closes, then it opens, then it closes. The GT4 drivers, they're concentrating so much on their own battle, whilst also trying to stay out of everyone's way. And again there, Josh Smith losing ground because of the GT3 car coming through.
Yeah, the GT4, it sometimes feels like the GT3 are bombarding you, and to be fair, the pros, when you're in GT4 and the pros are in GT3, it's a bit easier. The AMs in the GT3 sometimes are a bit too polite, and it's hard to read their body language, what they're doing. The technology in these cars is amazing. I know in the Tolman McLarens that we have a rear radar system which flashes different colours and size depending on the closing speed and car. So that's a great help. But for me, it's all about the body language of your car. So if you don't want someone to overtake you, you turn in a bit early and cut the door off them so they can't come, and then make it interesting. But then likewise, you sometimes try and help out if you know it's going to help both of you. You can flick an indicator on left or right. Although the German guys, they indicate the side that they're going, which is really confusing. So that's one thing. And then it's all about just trying to work with them, and you do kind of form a bit of a partnership over the years. So there's some guys that I would let through a bit easier, and some guys I didn't like that I would block and try and slow them down. So you'll see that inter-team kind of stuff with TF having cars in both classes, Century and Optimum. Not saying anything too underhand, but you will help out when and if you can your GT3, GT4 compatriot.
It makes sense. You're not going to make life difficult for a car that's run out of the same stable, are you, regardless of what class they're in. And yeah, it's a balancing act that for both the overtaking car and the car that's being lapped. And as we see, the gap has now ebbed back in the favour of Josh Smith slightly, so he's extended the margin at the end of that lap to a second, and at 1 second further back is Jacob Matthias still in 3rd position. And then they've got a 10-second margin over Callum Poynton and Senan Fielding, the Stellar Performance Audi, which started on the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th row of the GT4 grid, and the number 29 car is now into 5th position. So another stellar performance by the Audi squad, who won on their debut with that car earlier on this season. It was quick right out of the traps, and they're into the top 5 in GT4 already. This 13th place battle is now ongoing. Ian Logie has caught Mark Farmer over the recent few laps. He was 1.7 seconds quicker than Farmer on the previous circuit, and so now the number 2 TF Sport Aston Martin has some defensive work to do. Getting towards, though, the pit stop window now. In the next 5-10 minutes or so, we should start seeing cars coming into the pit lane. So if Mark can hang on before he hands over to Nicky Thiem, that would be good news for TF Sport, but it's not going to happen. Through goes Ian Logie, and Ian now into 12th position. And they are a long way off the race leaders, of course. They're over a minute, I reckon, off the race leaders. If we get a safety car, though, crucially, they're still on the lead lap. And that's the thing, isn't it? If you stay on the lead lap, you're still in it. If there's a safety car and you're off the lead lap, that's your day done, isn't it, really? Yeah,
you might as well park her up and save the money, because you're out of the running, unfortunately. But yeah, as soon as you're on that lead lap, there's a little bit of hope, especially for Nicky, say, the pro in the garage waiting for his turn. You're just praying for a safety car. And I don't know what I did right in the Formula Life, but I was always so lucky of getting a safety car at the right point, and you kind of suddenly gives you a huge adrenaline boost, like, oh, I've got an hour of something to fight for, rather than without a safety car, you're literally driving around drawing circles with a car. And it's yeah, a little bit difficult sometimes when you know you're not in the championship hunt or in the points. So yeah, you kind of go for fastest lap and go for vanity. That's the only thing you can really take from that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the number 4 Tolman Motorsports McLaren makes its way back up the hill, still with this cushion over Scott Maxwell of what was half a second at the start of the lap. the number 4 machine that of the two Tolman cars has had the slightly more frustrating season. The sister car, the number 5 of Lewis Proctor and Jordan Collard, they're 5th in the championship, but the Josh Smith and James Dorling car, 8th place in the points. They could do with a result. That is James, I think, isn't it, watching on from the pit garage, former Renault Clio Cup star, runner-up in the Renault Clio Cup last year. That's a bit of a transition, that, isn't it? A front-wheel drive, short-wheel, hot hatchback, tin-top category into a rear-wheel drive GT4 car. We make the point that these GT4 cars, they're not as quick as the GT3s, but they're still mighty fast, aren't they?
Yeah, hugely fast. Yeah, when we get to do a lot of work on our events at McLaren, the GT4s, anytime we take someone out for the first time, they can't believe the performance. And speaking with James at the start of the year, obviously trying to understand what he'd done before racing a Renault Clio, is basically, well, everything you've learned is the other way around. The engine's in the wrong place, drives the wrong wheels, aerodynamics, everything. And James has done a great job as part of the McLaren DDP program to really get on top of this and be a proper force to be reckoned with in GT4. And you'll start to see the car move around, and that's when your car control comes in, and you want to be pushing to the limit. And as soon as you go over it, we've seen in GT3 how easy they are to spin. You need to really be at one with the car, so you get the seat fitted to you, so you can feel it move around, catch those slides, so it doesn't turn into a big spin, and also you don't have to lose your pace. It looks like this battle's kind of calmed down a little bit now. As I said, maybe Maxwell had to push hard to catch up, and is now just having to regroup, get the pressures back down on the tyres. Generally with these Pirellis, the lower the tyre pressure, the faster they are. And then when you push hard, it generates more heat, and that pushes the pressure up. So he's probably just getting all his ducks in line and getting ready for another attack before his stint's over, I would suggest. Yeah,
he's clearly got natural pace. He closed this gap fairly rapidly earlier on, but yeah, the number 4 car, I said it was down in 8th place in the championship. It's still only 17 points off the championship lead, so a good result here today for Josh Smith and James Dorling would put them again right into the contention. And we've had 5 different winners from 5 races in GT4, and such is the strength in depth in the category. There are so many more cars that haven't yet won a race. It's definitely there are plenty more that could win. So I think the GT4 category continuing to be extremely competitive. So out of the hairpin they go, and the gap between the two of them is, well, it was half a second. This time it's 0.8 of a second. It's not going to change significantly now, I think, because of the lack of GT3 traffic. I did spot in the background there that the Ian Logie car had been in, so I'm assuming now that Callum McLeod has jumped on board the number 6 Ram racing machine. An early pit stop there makes sense, I guess, to get the second driver in, the pro driver in the car now for the second stint as soon as possible. And watch the lap times come down. Speaking of Silver Cup entrance in the GT3 category, there's the number 7 car running in 10th position at the moment, Glingeddy, which has had 4 track limits warnings, we're being heard and we're being told, so he'll have a drive-through penalty if he gets another one. So the number 7 car, which has had an eventful start to the race, shall we say, and Ryan Ratcliffe will be watching on from the pit lane, just hoping that that penalty does not get applied to either of them. So
yeah, Glyn's aggressive in and out of the car. If you've never met Glyn Geddy, he's a lovely guy I have to first start with, but I met him at a hotel bar once when we were racing, and I've never been so scared in my life, and ended up just drinking with him so he didn't beat me up. And I think yeah, his track limit warning is kind of stemming from his aggressive nature, and he'll be hugely frustrated. This is a car that should be much closer to the front. We've seen Team Parker with Bentley win the championship, and he and Ryan Ratcliffe, a really good silver pairing, obviously all the way down in P10. It's a long day at the office for both of them at the moment.
Yes, now I just mentioned the number 6 car went into the pit lane. I don't think they actually changed drivers. It's still showing as Ian Logie on the timing screen, and they shouldn't have changed drivers because each driver, or the lowest graded driver, must do at least half of the race, and we're not halfway through yet. So Ian Logie, being the lower graded of the 2 drivers, needs to stay in the car for another 20 minutes. So maybe some sort of an issue there, unfortunately. Damage here to this Aston Martin that got into the back of the GT3 car earlier on.
They obviously built a strong car. That is a hell of a lot of damage on the front there. And performance-wise, he's doing a really, really good job for Toff Jones. And he's keeping it up. And on the front engine car, the radiator sits there, and you can kind of see all the debris on the bottom of the Melbourne hairpin that he left with the contact with Ballon. And the other guys need to be careful. I've seen 3 or 4 cars run over that debris, and it'd be a mixture of carbon fibre and aluminium, as we see Murfitt Say hello to the passenger door of the Mustang.
That's Chris Hoy in the number 19 Multimatic Ford Mustang, who is making his first appearance of the season here in British GT. I believe he's coming to Spa with us as well next time out. So, yeah, welcome to the championship, Chris.
And Chris has done a fair bit of motorsport now, so he's a good peddler all round, 2 and 4 wheels, and lovely guy, and brings a lot to the table. And he's done GT3 with Nissan, went to Le Mans as well, and LMP2, so he's not just a cyclist that has a go of it in motorsport. He genuinely loves it. I met him on a track day once at Alton Park, and he just turned up in a Lotus, did a few laps and went home, but was there for the love of it rather than any sort of commercial pressures, which is really good to see. We're lucky in motorsport that we attract a lot of characters, and a lot of people want to be part of the British GT circus.
This is the third car I've seen him race this year. In fact, third car in the last month I've seen him race. He raced in a Caterham and in a Classic Mini, and now a Ford Mustang GT4 car. So he gets around a bit, does Sir Chris, but he enjoys his sport, and as you say, he gets quicker and quicker all the time. At the moment, he's running down third place in GT4 Pro-Am, which is actually a decent podium result there within the Pro-Am element of GT4. The bulk of the outright front runners at the moment in GT4 are the Silver Cup entrants. Right, battle here between 7 and 72 for 10th position. Glingedi has been caught now by Adam Ballon, who is really harrying him under braking towards the Melbourne hairpin, and Chris Hoy just needs to try and stay out of the way, but that's easier said than done. He in turn is under pressure from Mark Murfitt in the number 77 Mercedes, who had a pop at him at this corner a lap ago. Speaking of having a pop, up the inside goes Adam Ballon, trying to take away this 10th place from Glingedi, and Glyn really knew when he was beat there, I think, ends up on the grass, and Ballon goes through. For the Lamborghini driver, he needs to try and gain as many places as possible. He is 49 seconds away from the race leader. Of course, no pit stop penalty to be served for the 72 car, so they may gain a bit of ground during the pit stops, and they need to salvage whatever points they can get, really. Last time out, it was a 7th place finish that they recovered to, which, again, could be worse, given the fact that that car was involved in the contact on the opening lap. He gained another spot there, on board with Barwell Motorsport Lamborghini, out of the old hairpin. An hour and a quarter, just over an hour and a quarter still to go then in this 6th round of the British GT Championship. At the head of the field, by the way, in GT3, a 4.5 second margin is what Graham Davidson enjoys over Sean Balfe. Ollie Wilkinson is third, a further 6.2 seconds back. He's got 3.4 in hand over Michael Igoe in 4th, and Sam DeHaan in the 69 Lamborghini is in 5th position. And right now it looks as though points-wise, it's between the two Barwell cars. Right now, it's advantage 69. They're 5th position. The 72 car just up into 10th position. How stressful a situation might that become for the Barwell squad if it comes down to a championship battle between the two teammates? We haven't really seen that in recent memory in this championship.
No, and it's worth pointing out that there's no team orders within a team in GT racing. Both Ballon and DeHaan are customers of Barwell, so they can't stipulate, like in Formula One, the lead car or the sister car, which one has a good position. So it's literally gloves off and just smash each other until the first one drops down. And they obviously did that at Silverstone already, so they've got the round going. It will be interesting to see how it transforms. Looks like Phil Keen's probably had a bit more pace than Johnny Cocker so far, so I think the gap's too big for Phil to get back on the back of the 69 car, but it'll be interesting in the second half of the race nonetheless if Phil knows he can really give it everything. As we see, is that Mathiasson?
No, it's 43. It's Gordon Colebrook that's gone off, I think, down to the old hairpin. He's done that properly as well, right off through the gravel.
Like something's broken on the rear suspension,
or maybe he was a bit frustrated and wanted to get back on the track quickly, and he's headbutted the tyre wall now. So, oh dear. Well, Andrew Gordon Colebrook will select first gear, carry on his way. I mean, that we make light of it, but that's easy done, I suppose, isn't it? Especially again for an AM driver. You know, you've just made a mistake, you just want to get back on the track and forget all about it, and whoops, you've used a bit too much right foot and around you go.
Yeah, the gravel itself will be on the tyres, which is slippy, and then the grass here, although it's probably dry over the last 48 hours, is still just 10% the grip of tarmac. So as soon as you try and put more than 10% power on, you've got not a lot. So he's collected it up there. I don't know if there's a GT3 involved, and he just lit the thing up. And I guess luckily he spun left, not across the track.
Yes.
That'd be a positive I could give him, but easily done. And that's where you've got to have a cool head. Count to 10, call yourself something, and then crack on, as we see
Mark Farmer around again at the chicane, and he was 12th position. Now he's about to gain a position potentially, because Glingedi has now been given a drive-through penalty for track limits. He was on his final warning about 10 minutes ago, and he's done it once too often for the clerk of the course, it's liking. So Mark Farmer will at least gain 11th place out of that, but another moment or a rotation. What was it? He's on his own, and too much curb.
Didn't even look too much. It just the bump really unsettled it, and it.
Ooh.
Yeah, it did well to miss that. That actually kind of surprised me how much it snapped round, and that's exactly what he said to me in the toilet, so to speak, was that the car is very aero-sensitive and the balance can be quite nervous, and I think the bump is probably maybe stalled the air underneath the car where the diffuser's doing the work, and then it's just spat him off. And you know, I don't think giving him 10 attempts he would save one of them. So
no.
The curb usage looked all right, but he's probably got to use less with the setup of that car, I'd suggest.
Yeah, Mark Farmer, an experienced racer these days, and so it's odd to see him having a season like this. But sometimes, I'm sure you've had years like this as well, where things just don't click. If you're in a car that doesn't necessarily suit your driving style, and once things start going wrong, it affects your mindset as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, it snowballs massively. It's a huge mental game, motorsport. I think you obviously need the physical fitness aspect of it, but the mental resilience as well. There's a huge team around you, but when you're in the car, you've got thousands of decisions to make per lap, and as soon as you start making a wrong one and you second guess your judgment, that's when it all goes wrong. You see Graham Johnson down the inside of the track speed. Oh, we've got a problem with car 4.
Now, this was the class leader, wasn't it? What's gone on here? Josh Smith has brought the 4 car into the garage. That's a disaster then for the car that we sort of bigged up as being the class leader and looking for their first win. It's been through the gravel. The 69 Barwell car, of Dahan was...
There's been contact on me. That looked like the car wasn't particularly happy when it rejoined the circuit. I don't know, something's broken to happen 2 corners from the pit while you're leading and decide to pit. You know the car is definitely done.
Yeah.
If I had 1% of doubt that the car was okay, I'd carry on and throw it in the wall at the next corner, but to box, he knew something was fundamentally done with that car. Now he's in the box, that's day done, park it up, save the fuel and put it in your road car.
Oh, what a shame that is then for Smith and Dorlin, who are on for their best result of the season by far. That now means that inheriting the GT4 lead is Scott Maxwell, with Jacob Mathiasen in the 42 BMW, about a second behind him. We've just seen the number 7 Glengetty-driven Intercontinental GT3 coming in for its drive-through, so that has rejoined now some way down the order once more. Outside the top 10 they will now be. Now heading down towards the old hairpin, we've got one of the TF Sport cars here, just ahead of Andrew Gordon-Colebrook. So this, therefore, is... Andrew Gordon-Colebrook, of course, has had his moments, hasn't he? He's down in 35th position now. There is our second place man, Sean Bell, 4.1 seconds behind the race leader. It does seem like Graham Davison is limiting the damage being done now to his race lead, and in clean air he's managing to match Sean Bell's times more or less. In the first sector Sean was less than a tenth quicker than him. In the second sector he's 3 tenths quicker than the race leader though, so it is creeping down. But then as soon as they have clean air, all of a sudden the clean air disappears again, and Chris Carr's Porsche Cayman appears in front of the race leading Aston Martin. Graham Davison, who in about 10 minutes or so will be handing over to Johnny Adam, and I'm sure they won't be counting any chickens yet, especially after what happened at Silverstone, where it looked like, okay, the win was never guaranteed because Callum McLeod was clearly applying the pressures to Johnny Adam in the closing stages, but a podium was pretty much guaranteed, and it all went wrong as quickly as it often does in motorsport, and with really very little warning. Johnny Adam, in fairness though, Joe, he didn't actually apportion any of the blame in that instance at Silverstone to the driver of the GT4 Mustang, did he? He was very pragmatic about it and said, no, that's just a racing incident. I knew I had to try and stop Callum coming through, and unfortunately paid the price.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said earlier, you're making 1,000 decisions a second in the car at times, and Johnny not only is one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet, especially for a racing driver, he's a truly lovely guy. Very smart, very calculated, and he's holding his hands up. There's no point trying to apportion the blame to someone else and not really getting anything from it. He's hold his hands up and let's move on to the next one. But yeah, they've got to have a good result here. That car for me at the start of the year was a championship winner already, with TF, Graham Davison, Johnny Adam together, 2 mighty Scots. That's a really good lineup, and we're seeing Graham had a good stint here, but Sean has done the fastest lap of the race in the Balf McLaren, 4 tenths quicker, so the pace is there in the McLaren, and he's reeling them back in. It was just such a great start from Davidson, and I think that would probably be a lot of fired up, pent up anger from that Silverstone incident that you talk about. Yeah,
Graham Davison driving at the top of his game these days, isn't he? And he is continuing to lead the way here as we approach the halfway distance. No further action, by the way, after that contact between the 43 GT4 BMW and the number 8 the Team ABBA racing car, but there is an incident under investigation between cars 4 and 69. Car 4 is the erstwhile GT4 leading McLaren that we've just seen pull into the pit garage, and 69 is the Sam de Haan driven Barwell Motorsport Lamborghini that we did suspect may have been involved in some way, and the stewards suspect so as well. So that is being investigated. A penalty is the last thing the 69 car needs, especially since they were on course to take some points out of their big championship rivals. Barwell Motorsport and Donington Park just do not go well together, do they? And I think they'll be glad to see the back of this place. After this weekend, we head to Spa next time out, then Brands Hatch on the Grand Prix circuit as well. They've been happy hunting grounds in the past for Barwell Motorsport. I'll be hoping that continues again this year. 3.1 seconds now then, this lead gap. So Sean Bell, I think in clean air, is fractionally quicker than Davidson, but 3.1 seconds in a field like this is still quite a decent margin, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely, but only a couple of GT4 cars get in his way, and that gets down to a second, and it starts to change the dynamic of the battle. Sean's on a green sector 1 as well, which is interesting this late on in a stint. Like I said earlier, luckily Sean's backed me up and said how good the McLaren is on a stint over its tyre. When the car starts, you're full of fuel. So in our GT3 McLaren, I know it's 130 kilos of fuel. So that's like 2 reasonable people or 1 really fat person. And then the tyres are getting worse. So it's a constant battle and flow. The tyres get worse, but the fuel comes off. And normally what you find is a halfway point in the middle of the car's good, and it goes back off again. But it looks like Sean's loving this car, and it's just getting quicker and quicker. So he's got another 4 laps. If he can take half a second a lap out of Graham in front, then he's going to be within that second margin, and suddenly the pit stops become a bit frantic. The team are a bit more rushed. They need to make sure they nail the pit stop because they don't have that margin of 4 or 5 seconds that they did at the TF garage, that is.
And Johnny Adam versus Rob Bell in the second stint is a fight that I would buy a ticket for, certainly, and it could be, since neither of them have a pit stop penalty to serve, that it's just as close after the pit stops have been served. So there is the number 6 Ram Racing Mercedes coming through, and it's overtaking some of the front-running GT4 machines again. The 58 HHC McLaren is the one that they've just gone past, and that's the car that was started by Tom Jackson. They are currently running 8th place of the silver GT4s, that's 9th place overall. We're going to see a GT4 related replay here, I believe, as well in a moment or two. And this, that is Tom Jackson. Oh, bouncing over the gravel, and the 75 car goes through. That was a change of position, actually. Patrick Mathieson there in the Aston Martin going into 8th place in GT4, and Jackson dropping down to 9th.
If that was Formula 1, he'd lose his licence for 5 years, wouldn't he? Yeah, he obviously lost the position, so no, there's nothing needed doing there. But again, just getting to end of the stint, cars start moving around, mistakes come, brakes even start to wear as well. So from the outside, things might look similar. As we see, GT3's tight there as well, and this battle's raging everywhere. It doesn't seem to have relented at all in this first 55 minutes. And amazingly, I think it is just the one retirement at the moment. Everyone else seems to be circulating quite happily, which is amazing.
There are a couple, I think, who are being worked on in the pit lane, which we may see back out again after. But yeah, generally speaking, after the various incidents we've had, most cars have been able to rejoin. There's the race leader, and 2.3 is now the gap, so it is now coming down. Again, there was traffic involved. I noticed that the race leading Graham Davidson car had to put a lap on J.M. Littman's GT3 BMW, and that is, again, a slightly harder overtake to make. He wouldn't have been defending exactly, but there's not the speed differential there to make that an easy pass.
You're correct that he shouldn't have been defending, but to go a lap down and get, like I said earlier, race over. So as the car, if that was my amateur, I'd be suggesting that he was robust with how he let Davidson through, because as soon as that move's done, if a safety car was to happen, it's day done. So it might be a bit easier for Sean now. As we see, it's kind of Littman's, your day's done, mate. You might as well get out of the way and not make anyone else's lives hard. So again, that's a negative of being the lead car. You're the snow ploughing through the snow, and everyone's in your wake with it. So we see Rob Bell in his bell.
Yes, and he will be in the car, hopefully, in the next couple of minutes, because I think most of these Pro-Am cars, at least, will pit at the first opportunity. It's sometimes the case that the silver cars stay out a bit later, let the pit lane quieten down a little bit, but we'll see how this all plays out. Another couple of laps before the pit lane window opens. Fastest lap, by the way, still belongs to Sean Balfe, which he set a few laps ago. But he is, on this particular lap, in the first sector a bit quicker than the race leader, but in the second sector a bit slower. So again, with the traffic, it ebbs and it flows, and what was a 2.3 second advantage, I think, has probably gone out this time for Graham Davidson. Yeah, 2.7 seconds the margin now, and big old gap though back to Ollie Wilkinson now. Now Ollie Wilkinson in the Aston Martin, who still hasn't come across the start finish line. There he is, coming out of the final corner. I sort of expected him to be a bit closer to those two, but Balfour's been able to race away from him, hasn't he? Remember, those two were nose to tail for a while. They both got past the Michael Igo Lamborghini at a similar time, and since then there's been no stopping Sean Balfe. He's disappeared up the road. Change there, I think, between the Lamborghinis, is there? Almost contact actually between Sam Dehaene and Michael Igo. Now Dehaene is already under investigation for contact with the GT4 car. He does not need to be getting into any more fisticuffs with the GT3 example, and Michael Igo, we know, is a feisty racer who will not move over and let him through. So Igo defending this fourth place busily. That was a bit tight, wasn't it, through Hollywood? Not a place you want to make contact.
Yeah, that was a bit like you go Igo with those two there, so that was interesting. And I think Igo's really struggling with the rear tyres. I saw him come out the last corner and it was like Tokyo Drift spec, and I think Sam Dehaene will see that, and that gives you a bit of confidence that when you know the guy in front struggling, you can put a bit of pressure on, show your nose, flush your headlights, just drive like a general aggressive kind of BMW driver on the motorway, and it will start to get into his mind and eat away. And the easiest overtake you can ever do is when the guy goes off in front of you, and that's what he's hoping for in a lovely way, I'm sure. It'll be interesting to see what the penalty and the team are saying about the GT4 with car 4 and the McLaren GT4, because if they think they're going to get a penalty, it just kind of change your attitude a little bit to, well, you might as well go a bit more then, because you're not going to get 2 penalties, you just get 1 big one. And if they get away with it, then brilliant. With the length of the time they're taking race control about the penalty, I assume they're going to want to look at the onboard cameras after the race, which I've never got a problem with. You get a very good bird's eye view of what's happened rather than take a snapshot. We haven't got the shots of it, so it's hard to call, but this battle looks exactly like it did a minute 32 seconds ago as we started the lap, and that is a brilliant move if he gets it stopped.
That was a fantastic move by Sam Dehaene, and he did get it stopped, and he's into 4th position. We see that move happen quite a lot at Redgate, don't you? You sell the dummy, oh no, I'm not going to attack this time, oh maybe I will, and then dive to the inside, but it's so hard to get the car pulled up for the apex, isn't it?
Yeah, because you're having to brake as late as possible to obviously get that momentum, but then you're off the racing line, you're not pointing the right way, so that was honestly one of the best overtakes I've seen in a long time from an AM on another amateur. It really shows you what level these guys that we disrespectfully call amateurs, they are within a second or two of a pro. They've got a job during the week, they're quite clever people, so they're having to worry about other things, whereas a pro is in a car up to 7 days a week for months and months on end, just focused on that. So that is brilliant, and he's now got a chance potentially with the cars in front to give Johnny Cocker a chance of getting those guys a podium, as the GT4 traffic has split those 2 Lamborghinis massively within half a lap.
Of course, the big benefit for Barwell's Silverstone disaster is that they don't carry a success penalty into Donington Park, so having moved into 4th position now, they ought to be able to try and salvage a good result out of this one. Oh, that's a close moment there for Tom Jackson, who's still battling away with Patrick Mathiesen's Aston Martin.
So I expect the leaders in this lap. So as they came across the line, there was a minute 10 left, and a lap time around here is a minute 30, so they're safe to box. It's brilliant when you box and you're the leader, you've got loads of space to come in. The problem is, if everyone else follows you in with your minimum pit stop time, it suddenly becomes full. You can become boxed in. And we've seen in British GT races that your pit stop's done, but you can't physically leave your pit box. And that is obviously a huge problem. So you might see some clever tactical positioning from the leaders as they come in. They might not look like they park particularly well, but they'll be focused on an exit rather than giving the team a sort of square car to work on.
Yeah, absolutely. There is the 3rd Ford Mustang in the race, by the way, and that is the race performance car, which has had slightly less success maybe than the Multimatic examples, but the number 23 machine that is shared by Sam Smelt and Aaron Taylor-Smith, a couple of former BTCC racers. And they are running at the moment fairly well, actually. 10th place in GT4 at this stage. Carving his way through past them, though, is the number 31 GT3 Bentley of Rick Parvin, who's had a quiet stint by his standards. Usually we see Rick getting stuck in, gaining loads of ground. He's had a couple of moments this year, though, hasn't he? Particularly Alton Park and Snetterton, where arguably a podium could have been on its way to the JRM squad, and then Rick's had a spin into the barriers on both occasions. Last time, they did inherit a podium finish, and then were disqualified from the race. So I think maybe a different mindset coming into this race. They need to just finish and get some good points. Right, into the pit lane, both of the top 2 cars, and I imagine most of them come in this time. It's the blue Aston Martin and the red McLaren we're focusing on, though. The gap was less than 3 seconds, and the pit stops should be about the same sort of time.
Yeah, and luckily for us, they're very close to each other in the pit lane, so we'll be able to get a very clear representation of it. British GT pit stops look a bit weird, I assume, because the driver has to get out, close the door, get behind the line before you can start refueling, whereas a European Series, you stay in the car, and if there's a fire, you're going to get out anyway. So you can see Johnny on the left-hand side waiting to get in. So as soon as the fuel comes off, the drivers can start the driver change and the tyres can start to be changed. So you can see the Balf car, and then the TF GT3 is behind that fluoro yellow TF GT4. Balf are going to get blocked in by their own GT4 car potentially there, so they need to be careful there. And they're on pit exit, which is brilliant. And it looks like they've probably got enough space to get out, but as I said, it's going to get busy very quickly. And Rick Parfitt pits as well. They said after a very quiet stint for Rick, Rick's a loud guy on and off the track with his exploits, but that car's looking not on the pace this weekend. Both Bentleys, I think, are going to be asking for a balanced performance change, and it's hard. So driver change done. Graham Davidson walks away from a mega stint. Balf still doing their driver change, door up on the McLaren's quite easy to spot. Tyres will be done, so they'll be getting the tyres they used in qualifying, so they'll be fresh but not new. GT3 might have one set of new tyres they could put on if they really wanted, but it's going to be difficult. So firing up, waiting for the minimum pit stop time to elapse.
Yeah, and significantly in this race, the GT3s and GT4s are pitting at the same time, which has not been the case earlier on this season. Out goes the 47, 22 has not yet moved from its pit bay, and if anything, and now it leaves about the same sort of gap as when they came in, which is how it should have been.
But the TF car was going very slow on pit exit, so there's a maximum pit speed, but not a minimum. So you've got to be in the pit lane for a set amount of time, and as your stopwatch is counting down, the engineer will be on the radio to you as we see a car with a bit of smoke coming out. That Optimum car looks very hot, and not in a good way.
Oh yeah, that's it's pulling over. It's had its pit stop. It's pulling over again. It's on fire.
So hopefully the Balf guys can help him out there with an extinguisher. But Bradley Ellis and that would like to get out of that rather quickly, I would suggest. Unfortunately, when you're refueling, the car's hot already, and it only takes honestly 100 millilitres of fuel to make a problem. Brad's done a superb job there. He would have known he was on fire early doors, but rather than stop in the fast lane or buy another fuel rig and create a really good fire, he's got all the way to the end where the marshals were on it super quick and saved that car from being a lot worse. Let's just hope it's a fuel spill and nothing worse, like a split fuel line or an oil line. We see the fire truck getting there as well. We shouldn't have to go to safety car. Brad's actually looking like he's got to get the bonnet off to try and help him get an extinguisher into the place it is. That's a horrible fire. The blackness of the smoke, and even the safety car's scared.
Yes, I don't blame them moving that safety car there, if I'm honest. Significantly, this is the car that was third in the championship going into this race, remember. Ollie Wilkinson and Bradley Ellis inherited a good finish, fourth position at Silverstone, but unfortunately their luck has run out. They finished every race this year pretty well as well, with a podium back at the season opener at Alton Park.
And even though it's a small fire, potentially, as soon as an extinguisher hits the car, that's it, game over. Yeah. It corrodes metal. It's nasty stuff. I had one go off on me and I breathed it in, and my lungs were stinging for weeks. I'm sure it's not particularly healthy for you. As we go back to the lead battle, so this is the first lap now for the pros, so they've got to get up to speed straight away, which they'll find easy. But then they're up against obviously the GT4 guys who might be on their outlap as well. So there's a lot of first going on for the guys out there today, and it looked like TF won a little bit in the pit stop to me. The gap was slightly bigger than when they boxed, and that's just how close you want to cut your minimum pit stop time. If you're anything under the pit stop time, you get a stop go for that. So it's not worth risking it for that last half a second, in my opinion. And yeah, we see the GT3 Lambo also doing well up there, and that's going to get his head down particularly long, I think, in this second half of the race. I think he could be one to watch.
Yeah, yet to stop is Michael Igoe, so he and Mark Farmer in the number 2 car, interestingly, stayed out a bit longer, although Mark has literally just dived into the pit lane to hand over to Nicky Team. But yeah, Michael Igoe, therefore, is about the only GT3 car, at least front-running GT3 car, yet to stop. The theory here being you don't want to get caught up in any of the silliness in pit lane, but it all gets really congested and busy and you get blocked in. By pitting later, the pit lane is clearer, so it's a less risky strategy, but you're leaving your AM driver out there for a couple of extra laps. He could be lapping potentially a couple of seconds slower now than his rivals for these couple of laps extra he's stayed on track.
Yeah, he boxes now, and it is so hard to win that time back. I was always of the attitude of just box as soon as you can. If you get boxed in, that's just bad luck, but if you stay for 2 or 3 laps and lose 6 seconds, then you've definitely lost 6 seconds that you're never ever going to be able to recover. So we see him box now, and yeah, Dennis Lind will help him out and then get in, and I think that car could move forward at a good rate of knots. The only negative, obviously, is their pit stop penalty carrying over from Silverstone.
yes, that will be an extra 10 seconds because they were third at Silverstone. The number 2 car that's in behind them has 15 seconds to serve, having finished second place at Silverstone, and the Ram Racing car, which has also sort of fallen by the wayside early doors with a 20-second penalty to serve.
We can see how cars get refueled in different ways. The more conventional manner's on the side near the door, the Mustang's through the rear actually, which is really rare. The Porsche's on the bonnet, so you actually see the guy jump on top and kind of straddle it in a quite an erotic fashion, which is quite cool, to dump 120 litres of fuel in. So we see the drivers get in now. The reason we have a minimum pit stop time, it looks a bit weird. I can look from an F1 kind of perspective where they're done in 2 seconds now, but it's a safety perspective. As a driver, if there wasn't a minimum, I'd kind of jump in and on my out lap sort my belts out then and then get cracking. So this makes sure all the belts are done up, the window net's done, the tyres are put on a safe and timely manner, and it's fair for everyone. So it doesn't matter if one team has more budget and can practice pit stops, it keeps it even for everyone. The GT4 have more time than GT3 because they have 5 stud wheel nuts, so you can hear them NASCAR style buzzing them on and off, where the GT3 is one big centre lock wheel, which does a good job to keep those big slicks on.
Significantly as well, the Silver Cup entries in GT4, which is the bulk of the field, have to serve an additional 26 seconds. That's quite a lot of time. I'm not convinced they've all gained 26 seconds in their first stint, so that will maybe lead to a bit of a shuffle of the order. As I said, most of the absolute front runners in GT4 were silvers anyway. There were a couple of Pro-Am cars, though, that could benefit from that.
Yeah, and we saw on the timing screen Fletcher in the Beach Dean GT4, the lead Pro-Am car, as we see Phil Keane nice and positive down the inside there, and he wants to get going and try and make up some of that time. But I think Fletcher's going to be leading GT4 because of that penalty you talk about. He did a great job. This year he has come on a million miles. He's almost closer to a pro than an am in his performance, which is great. Again, not his full-time job. He does a bit of that acting stuff or something, and all the women love him when he goes up and down the pit lane. So he's got 2 jobs, one driving and one dealing with women, I think.
So I've heard. Yes, but he always used to be an actor that did a bit of racing, and now it's almost swapping round, isn't he? He's taking this very seriously this year. He always did take it seriously, but this year, as you said, it's been a marked improvement, and the fact that he's kept up with the silver-graded drivers around him is telling of that. The move we just saw, by the way, that was made by Phil Keane, that was for 6th position now, so Phil Keane ahead of Ben Green for 6th, and the next target for him is Seb Morris in the number 31 Bentley. There he goes. He was only a couple of seconds up the road. That would be to get the 72 car into the top 5. Bear in mind that about half an hour ago that car was 10th in class, and now they're staring down the barrel of a top 5 finish, and their teammate car is in 4th. So what was going to be a fairly significant advantage points-wise for the 69 car is being limited now by a good second half of the stint for Adam Ballon and a good start to the stint by Phil Keane. As you said, a decisive move up the inside of Ben Green's BMW, and that car looks as though it might be able to salvage something out of this afternoon after all. So now towards the hairpin they go, and Ben Green's number 3 BMW then also having a decent run, 7th place for them at the moment. Now that's their best finish of the year. They've had a couple of top 5s, a couple of 5th places in fact at Alton Park, but beyond that their season has gone rather downhill.
And that's the fastest lap of the race for Phil Keane as well there, so
yes,
that's a pretty good intent statement there. That he's taken a chunk out of Morris as well in that lap, let alone like nearly 8/10 of a second. So that battle's going to heat up in the next lap and a half, 2 laps. And then, as you said, he's kind of back to where they need to be for a championship perspective. Looks like Cocker's still in front of Lind, which will be an interesting 3-way Lambo battle, especially between Phil Keane and Lind. Lind's a Lamborghini factory driver that we've not had in British GT before, so it's always great to get these international drivers in and see where they are. A bit of a litmus test really for the British GT drivers, but also them to see what level everyone's at. We call it just British GT, but the level of these guys, the teams, the drivers, they go into Blancpain, say, the next weekend, and they're in the same sort of positions in the top 5. So just a domestic championship, but it is at an international level of quality these days.
According to my timing screen, Mark Farmer has just set the fastest lap of the race. I think that's Nicky Team, and they haven't swapped the transponder over. And right on cue, my timing screen changes. So Nicky Team with the fastest lap of the race, 1:27.9, in 11th place though, and they're 10.6 seconds behind Tom Onslow Cole, who makes his return to the championship in the number 8 Mercedes. This then, the fight for 5th, Seb Morris, Phil Keane looking definitely the quicker of the 2, and the car looking better suited to this circuit as well. We've seen Phil and Seb do battle for the championship a couple of years ago, and it was Seb with his teammate Rick Parfin who came out on top then, at that point running for Team Parker Racing. This season it's the JRM squad who are running the Bentleys. had good pace at the early rounds of the season, but right now the Lamborghini looking quicker. Where does the Lamborghini make the move then? Because through this part of the circuit, the gap is going back out.
Yeah, so the longer wheelbase of the Bentley, like I said earlier, is just better through the mid-speed corners. The Lambo's going to have the biggest, at the end of the straight it looks quick, but also on the brake, so it's definitely that second half of the lap, isn't it? You see the gap's really grown already here, so Phil might be just thinking about, I want a bit of a gap to run into. You see the on-board from Phil, how relaxed he is. I've done a few races with Phil, sparred 24 hours, you cannot rattle the guy, so you know he's going to stay calm, even if there's a bit of adversity, he's going to be there. Seb, that bit younger, come from single-seaters, super fast, but maybe has a bit more of a mistake in him than Phil, so Phil will also be thinking about that and just waiting for it here, but the kind of gap's closed back up again a little bit, but actually looks like the Bentley's got some good mid-speed performance from that kind of traction into high speed, and the concertina effect makes it hard to really understand where the car is strong, but it doesn't really grow on that exit, so it looks like he'll probably be close on the exit of this corner like he was last lap. We'll have a look into Redgate. Hopefully that Merc holds Morris up from Keane's perspective, but now he's going to get held up on exit, so actually that was a pretty fair GT4 battle in terms of holding them both up.
Michael Broadhurst, that was, in the Fox Motorsport Mercedes, doing his best to stay out of the way. But the Bentley stays in 5th place for the time being. These two are circulating about 51 seconds behind the race leaders and being caught, so putting way now from Ben Green, who's being caught by Ross Gunn, who's not doing badly for his first appearance in the car in British GT this year, but he was racing it a week ago at Le Mans in the main support race to the 24 hours and did rather well in it as well. So he knows the car, he knows these circuits, and Ross Gunn is catching this group in 8th position.
Yeah, he was actually the fastest pro in qualifying yesterday for Aston Martin, which is amazing to come into a championship halfway through the year. I actually saw on the timing screens he was purple in a sector when the red flag came out, so it might have been even better for him had McLeod put it in the gravel, and that really hurt a lot of pros' times. With the Pirelli tyre, you've got one lap before it drops off, and everyone was on that lap when the red flag came out. So when they went back out, the peak of the tyre had already gone. So I think that's why we're going to see quite a lot of movement. There's a lot of cars out of position in qualifying. So this could all bunch up, and Phil getting stuck here has cost him a second lap as he shows his nose. Morris is giving him space.
Has he?
Till he didn't. And then off we go. I'm going to say both cars are going to be okay. And I'm going to say there's going to be no penalty either way on that, but I thought Seb had seen him and the attitude of the car looked like that, and I was kind of in Phil's boat, that it looked like the move was on and then suddenly it wasn't on, and he was keen to get it done.
I wonder whether or not maybe he didn't expect the move to come at that point, left the door open, and he'd already checked his mirrors and then committed to the corner. We've got team managers being summoned to race control now for cars 74 and 75. 74 is the track-focused KTM Crossbow of the McEwens, and then the 75 Optimum Motorsport Aston Martin. So I'm already amazed that the KTM is leading the race, quite frankly, because with two McEwens at the wheel, it ought to be right at the front. But no, they've had a slightly trying weekend of the KTMs, not necessarily best of circuits for that car, and their team manager being summoned to race control.
I always think race cars look how they go, so a good car goes well and a bad car doesn't go well. That KTM just looks completely wrong, so I'm sure that's why it lacks a lot of pace. They had an open top car for years and years, and now they've just stuck a greenhouse on top of it. I think to comply to the regulations, it needs a windscreen. So yeah, that car must be pretty hard to drive, I'd imagine. KTM make motorbikes, not cars, in my opinion.
It is very space-agey, isn't it? And the way in which you get in and out of the car is the quirk. You sort of take the roof off temporarily and climb on in. Nice to have some variety in the championship, though, and that is certainly different to most of the cars that we see out on the grid. The race leader, meanwhile, is Johnny Adam, 1.5 seconds clear of Rob Bell. He pulled that gap out on the previous lap by a second, but now he's getting squeezed in between slower runners, and this could be Rob Bell's opportunity. The McLaren is right there, but then, again, what benefits him momentarily at the next corner, he is the one that gets held up. It's the number 8 car of Tom Onslow Cole here, who is going a lap down. And again, to your point earlier on, he doesn't want to lose that lead lap. Now he's lost it. Oh, on you go, Rob, up the inside, and Rob Bell gets through easily. Tom is not necessarily doing anything wrong there, is he? You can understand why he's desperate to hang on to the lead lap, but that very nearly cost Johnny Adam the race lead. Yeah,
massively frustrating for Johnny Adam, but I'll do exactly the same in Tom Onslow Cole's position. You have to fight to the death, and unfortunately Johnny's the first guy through, and this fight's going to get interesting. I think it'll be interesting to see how the AMs are watching on, to be fair.
Well, watching on from down in the pit lane is Sean Balfe, who I believe is with Andy J. Andy, is he enjoying this at all?
Well, let me ask that question straight away. Sean, I've been asked if you're enjoying this.
Yeah, really enjoyed the moment the door shut, so I think it's important we talk about that. So yeah, all good.
You hand over to Rob in a very strong position, of course.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's trying to do the best they can. Just trying to be wise in the traffic, but give people space. And then, importantly, when we had clear air, is just use that to the absolute maximum. So I was just trying to balance it out. Teams seemed to think that the pace was good. Gives you confidence knowing that it all in place. And obviously, I could see that I was catching Graham towards the end. That took a lot of work, so yeah, it was a hard graft.
I can tell you put a shift in, because although it might not be clear to the viewers here, you are absolutely drenched in sweat.
Yeah, it's quite warm in there. So yeah, I think we'll need a beer tonight, whatever the result. For now, we just have to cross our fingers and hope that everything pans out. We feel we're ready for a bit of luck, but we know motorsport doesn't always roll like that, so
fingers crossed. Good luck. Thanks for talking to us. Appreciate it.
Well, after what happened to them at Silverstone, where they were arguably on course for the race victory, and then they had a problem in their final pit stop, the door wouldn't close properly, they lost all that position and then in the end retired the car. They'll be glad to have got the pit stop out of the way, and they will feel they're owed a good result. Looking at the two cars, looking at the car language and the lap times between the two of them, do you think there is any advantage either way here, or are Johnny Adam and Rob Bell as evenly matched as we expected them to be?
At the moment, it's definitely pretty even sector-wise. It's only really sector one the McLaren has an advantage, and that's up to this point of the circuit. It's a very short sector, 19 seconds, and the rest of it is very similar. There's definitely not a disparity in balance of performance at top end or braking performance, so an overtake for Rob is going to be very difficult to manufacture at this point. So I think he's probably going to be happy to sit here. The team will be telling him time remaining and all the vitals like that, and then he'll just be looking at the GT4 traffic and just hoping that it just catches Johnny wrong, as we saw at Silverstone. That's exactly what happened. So Johnny's now got that added pressure of what happened at Silverstone. I can't afford that same mistake to happen, so he potentially be a bit more cautious in the traffic, but the cars are looking even, and we can even see the cars that have been lapped are kind of staying with the leaders, be it the pace is so similar across the GT3 field. So we have two GT4 cars here. You see the Parker Mercedes getting out of the way very well, but now Johnny's having to go around the outside. That's going to be fine for Johnny, but now Rob's got a decision to make. Where does he go? He'll go in deep and hopefully go for a second apex, cut it back and get a good exit, and then carry the speed so he can get past him. But it's going to be an interesting 40 minutes. It's just going to ebb and flow. I don't think you're going to be able to read into the sector times too much until you know they've both got a clear lap on it. And I think they're safe from behind. So I think this is really the only two cars that we're going to be looking for the win. And as we see Nicky Team, who is a lap down, he's actually catching these leaders. He just did a 28.6 versus the leaders 28.8 and a 29.2. So yeah, he's going to have a hard decision potentially. Nicky, that he could catch them up and shouldn't really overtake him, but is entitled to.
Well, if he catches Rob Bell and starts harrying him, that plays nicely into the hands of Johnny Adam, even though it's not for position. If there's, I guess, nothing wrong with Nicky cruising up to the back of the McLaren and then sitting there and applying the pressure. So yeah, that could be an interesting dynamic here. So there, the second of the blue Aston Martins, number 2, Nicky Team, is a lap behind those two, but lapping faster than them. This could prove to be a fascinating final 40 minutes or so. He has just gained a position, by the way, at the expense of Tom Onslow Cole, and indeed, sorry, Ryan Ratcliffe, excuse me, on the previous lap. He got the number 7 car of Ryan Ratcliffe into 9th position then for Nicky Team, car that he shares with Mark Farmer, that started 8th on the grid, so they're almost now back to where they started, but they're some way behind Ross Gunn in the Beach Team Aston Martin and not lapping significantly quicker than him. Past the McLaren goes the McLaren. Rob Bell in the GT3 example, a second behind Adam at the start of the lap. Over this lap, maybe it's creeping back down again, but I think that's going to be very much the story of the race. They've got a 26-second advantage over Johnny Cocker, who is 3rd. Dennis Lind has not been able really to go with Cocker in this stint. He's 11 seconds back in 4th position, and Phil Keane is rounding out the top 5 in the number 72 Lamborghini. Closest of the battles in GT3, apart from the overall race leaders, is the one for 7th place between Ben Green in the BMW and Ross Gunn in the Beach Team Aston Martin. So those two are only 0.2 of a second apart at the line. We daren't take our eyes off this lead battle because it is developing quite nicely here, and with Nicky Team about to arrive on the scene, we've could have an extra dynamic thrown into this battle. There is Nicky, who, that's their best result so far. It would have been Silverstone, wouldn't it? Yeah, that's second place, their first podium finish of the year for Nicky and Mark. Not going to repeat that here today, but again, any points they can salvage are well worth taking. What about GT4 then? The GT4 race leader is Mark Kimber, there in the number 42 BMW, who's just gone through. So we sort of thought it might be the number 11 car that took the lead, but they had 15-second success penalty to serve because they were second at Silverstone. So number 42 Mark Kimber has a 3.5-second lead over that Ford Mustang being driven now by Seb Prio. So Seb Prio on the previous lap was actually a tenth slower than Mark Kimber. They are both running in the silver category. 7.5 seconds further back is Dean McDonald in the HHC McLaren, the championship leading HHC McLaren. And remember that Maxwell and Prio came into this race 2 points behind them. If we threw the flag now, and thankfully we're not doing that for another 38 minutes, but if we were to throw it now, the Mustang would be the championship leader. What do you think then? Can Seb catch Mark Kimber? At the moment, they're looking reasonably evenly matched. Two similar cars to my untrained eye as well, aren't they? Both front-engine, big, boxy sort of point-and-squirt cars. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. The Mustang's a slightly bigger silhouette of the car, but yeah, the BMW similar in its drive. They're both very torquey cars. So V8 engines producing a lot of torque, so the power's there, but the kick out of the corner on both of them is good. Front engine, so they're always very positive to drive. Sometimes towards the end of the stint, that rear tyre drops off. Just trying to work out why Plowman isn't as high up, because as I said earlier, Fletcher was within 26 seconds of the Silvers, but they obviously had their 15-second penalty, so I guess that was only an 11-second gain overall. But yeah, the GT4 battle started to quiet down. The only one really making a move is Jordan Collard in the Tolman car. He's within a second of McDonald in the HHC McLaren, so that should be a fair battle. And that gap's now down at 0.2 of a second. Everything else is quite spread out at the moment.
That's a significant battle as well, isn't it? Because Collard is 5th in the points and some, what did I say, well, 7 points off the championship lead. So if he can get past the 57 McLaren, that would be rather handy points-wise for them. Well, there is the number 19 Multimatic Motorsports Ford Mustang of Billy Johnson that was started by Sir Chris Hoy. And we've seen Chris racing in the championship in the past. He knows that you need to get stuck in, and get stuck in he did, Andy.
There you go. Hello guys, yes, well I have Sir Chris Hoy here and he's coming, clearly having a lovely time. Chris, you're enjoying this, aren't you?
Of course, what's not to like? Yeah, it's great to be back in British GT. I think it's 5 years since I was driving in the GT3 class, so I'm back with the Multimatic team in the Mustang, having a great time.
I mean, if I'd said to you 5 years ago, you'll be throwing a Mustang around Donington Park, you wouldn't have believed that at all, would you?
I mean, any of this, the whole motorsport journey I've been on, it is a dream, and to get these opportunities, I'm just a very lucky boy. So when you get these opportunities, you want to do the best you can to make the most of them, because there's so many people out there that would love to be in my position, to be getting the chance to drive these amazing cars.
Well, you've now sampled so many different cars, from Caterhams through to, of course, your fantastic Le Mans experience and the Nissan initially. Yeah. How does the Mustang compare as a car?
The Mustang is, I would say, for an amateur driver, it's an amazing car to drive. It's quite benign, so it's not the kind of car that snaps away on you. They've got it set up so you can really push and have confidence. It's quite progressive, so it gives the amateur driver the confidence. But equally for the pros, they can hustle it, and you see how quick it is in the hands of Seb and Billy and Scott. It's a great car. Yeah, it's the first time I've driven it this weekend. I had 6 laps of practice and then straight into qualifying, so I'm still getting used to it. But it's the kind of car you feel quite comfortable with quite quickly.
Brilliant. So we're going to see you back again then, I take it?
Yeah, I'm going out to Spa, and that same weekend I've got the Caterham Championship and the British GT on the same weekend, so I'll be getting plenty of laps at Spa, which is never a bad thing.
Not much rest.
Yeah, exactly. Good fun.
Thank you very much for talking.
Well, Sir Chris might want to divert his attention to the track, because his car is about to, I think, take the class lead here in Pro-Am for GT4, because the Aston Martin in front of Martin Plowman is the Pro-Am leader in GT4, and right behind him now is the number 19 car of Billy Johnson, who closes in down the Crater curves. A great view here from on board the Mustang. You can really see the elevation change there down that very quick part of the circuit. Takes a bit more curve, tighter line through the old hairpin, more speed out of the old hairpin. It's quite steeply uphill here, isn't it, Joe? So it's crucial you get a good exit from that right-hander.
Yeah, climbing all the way around Donington. It's like a roller coaster, Donington. Brilliant, built on obviously an old country estate, so had plenty of land to just go where they wanted, and it definitely works. And yeah, it looks like Johnson, with all of his experience again, is just waiting his time. When you've only got to make one position in 34 minutes, there's no need to be rash and make a move that doesn't stick. So you'll have me just sit there and see what's going on. He's got no one behind him. And then it's the opposite for Blaumann. He's trying to just keep the momentum going where he doesn't have to defend too much and really lose his pace. But it looks like it's going to be a battle there. And I think what we'll tend to see at the end is the guys who haven't used their track limit warnings will be able to use them advantageously through the chicane. You can cut the right. One year, for whatever reason, the race director said we can do whatever we want through there, and it's worth 5 or 6 tenths of a second just for one corner, straight lining it. So if you've got 2 or 3 track limits left and there's only 2 laps left, say, you might as well go for it and find a second doing it twice, and that might be your move. So it's kind of cheating, but not getting caught.
Well, hey, if there's a loophole in the rules, then you can bet that these teams, they'll have read those regulations from back to front umpteen times over the winter. They know where the loopholes are, and there's the move on the inside. Billy Johnson has dive-bombed the number 11 car, which had a bit of a twitch under braking, I think, and through into the Pro-Am lead in GT4 goes the Ford Mustang of Billy Johnson that he shares with Sir Chris Hoy. That was a really nice move made there into the right-hander, and I think he should now have the pace to pull away, but you were right there, Joe, just bided his time, waited for the opportunity, and when it arrived, he snatched it straight away. So, Mustang lead in Pro-Am in GT4. They are second outright in GT4 with the sister car of Seb Prio, who is still about 1.6 seconds off the overall class leader, Mark Kimber. Multimatic going well here this weekend, and the race performance car, number 23, had been having a decent run as well, but I think they've slipped down the order slightly. Meanwhile, at the front, that is not a change for position, but Nicky Team, I think, is trying to get past Rob Bell here, and has gone past Rob Bell, so that's Nicky Team unlapping himself from the second place car. Now, the cynic in me thinks that Nicky Team's lap times might now drop off slightly now that he's in front of that McLaren, because he is the physical buffer now between his teammate, the number 47 of Johnny Adam, the race leader, and his nearest rival, Rob Bell. The gap has already gone out to 2.7 seconds as a result of that move being made. If you were Nicky, what would you be doing?
Flat out, I think, especially to your sister car. You always want to prove yourself in the pace, and generally driving faster is more fun anyway, so I think he's got nothing to lose either. So that's a couple of tenths a lap over Johnny, who'll be thinking about the race and the championship a bit more than Nicky has to at the moment. And it's quite good when you get back in the truck afterwards and you get changed and you've been the quicker one of the teammates. Suddenly you've got a bit more confidence as you get changed and expose yourself.
Well, what you get up to in your own time in the paddock is, yes. You're right, though, and confidence is something they could do with, really. Nicky Team, in particular, after the frustrating season that we've documented for he and Mark Farmer so far. They're running, by the way, in 9th place in GT3, but 30 seconds behind anybody else, so unless other people start falling by the wayside, I think 9th is as good as it will get, which will score them handful of points, but not as many as they would have liked. But if they can unlap themselves and we get a safety car, all of that changes. So actually, you're right, this does take on extra significance, and you'd imagine if he catches Johnny Adam, Johnny won't make life too difficult for him, regardless of what the situation is for the two car. There's no sense getting involved in a battle with a car that's trying to unlap itself. Yeah, and
Johnny, I would actually be quite imagine, be keen to let Nicky go, and he can be the trailblazer. Like we see here, Johnny's having to do some work through traffic, so it'd be nicer to get Nicky out there in front and he can do all the work. Johnny can just sit a second or two behind him, still in clean air, but kind of letting someone else open up the floodgates for you.
GT4 battling away still. This is the race performance Ford Mustang and the number 19 Multimatic Ford Mustang getting themselves together. This is not for position, of course, because the 23 car is, I think, a lap behind the 19 machine. But yeah, this is a tight little battle. The TF Sport Aston Martin involved with this as well, as they round the left-hander. That is for position then. So the number 97 car is running in 6th place in GT4 outright, and Billy Johnson may be leading Pro-Am, but he's only 7th in the overall GT4 rankings and would like to try and gain some more positions if he can. Richard Williams in the 29 Stellar Performance Audi is a little bit further up the road. Back on board then with the Mustang through Hollywood, dropping down the hill through the Craner curves. Clear road in front of them for the time being. He has sort of dropped Martin Plowman, who is 2nd place in Pro-Am, and the longer Billy spends stuck behind the Tom Canning-driven Aston Martin, then the closer the Beach Team prepared Aston Martin may get. Three McLeans again. Number 31, by the way, is being ignored for exceeding track limits now, which is Seb Morris, running in 6th place overall. He's been caught well and truly now by Ross Gunn. So GT3 battling starting to develop again, as here the 23 car He's about to go another lap down to Martin Plowman, and Martin would like to get on with this because he wants to get onto the tail of the other Ford Mustang in front, which is a fight for position. Pulls to the outside, pulls to the inside, thinks about it. Doesn't want to take the risk of colliding with a car that he is essentially lapping here. Might as well bide his time and make sure it's a clean move when it happens. Through goes Phil Keane. How's he getting on? 7.9 seconds behind Dennis Linden is Phil Keane, and on previous lap was over a second and a half quicker, so the green Lamborghini that's just gone through, running in 5th place overall. As things stand then, they would lose a handful of points to the their championship rivals, Sam Dehan and Johnny Cocker. As we said earlier on, not half as many as it looked like they were going to earlier on in the race. Across the line then. Again, we get to see the great variety here in GT4. The low-slung Aston Martin, the big boxy Ford Mustang, and they all, with the balance performance working as it does, seem to be very, very evenly matched indeed. Ryan Ratcliffe now coming up the hill, running in 11th place overall. Meanwhile, just in front of him is a battle here between the other Ford Mustang. This is indeed for the race lead, in fact, in GT4. So Seb Prio has now caught Mark Kimber, had a really good exit from the chicane as well there. Did he get up the inside of the BMW? No, not quite. And they've got Tom Onslow Cole putting a lap on them as well. 3 into 1 rarely works out at the Melbourne Head, but thankfully Seb Prio was so wide into the corner that he was well out of harm's reach, gets a good exit as a result. And again, we get this double switchback now. He's trying to get to the outside into Goddard to get the switchback again on the run to Redgate corner. But whichever way he goes, there is a BMW in the way. Seb has done, in a way, the easy bit now, hasn't he? He's caught the BMW, getting past a car that, as we've documented, has very similar strengths and weaknesses. Won't be easy.
No, definitely, and especially for people who don't know the circuit so well, I'm not sure how many laps Prio would have done in a Mustang round here. Obviously, single-seater experience, lots of it. But in a GT car, overtaking is that bit harder because the car's wider, so there's less retail space to plonk it down the inside. And I think hopefully the team would be advising him where they've seen some of the overtakes from like Billy Johnson on Plowman and going, just so you know, we had an overtake here, so maybe think about that. And then obviously Prio will be sizing him up himself anyway. As we see the BMW again moving around. The cars tend to slide just because the power is going through the rear wheels, the rear tyre wears out quicker. So that's why we see the cars moving around so much, whereas a touring car, front engine, front wheel drive car will work the front tyre, it's the complete opposite. And that's, I think, why we saw so many spins in the arms of the GT3s, because they all were getting a bit happy on the loud pedal.
Well, a good exit there, lots of loud pedal being used for Seb Prio. He's a bit closer this time into the chicane. There's no sense really in trying a move there. Again, it's all about the exit speed. How much curb does he use? More than the BMW again, taking a few liberties with track limits, but this is for the class lead, so it's worth taking the risk, I guess. And once more, Mark Kimber is able to get over to defend the inside line. This for the GT4 lead then. Dean McDonald is 11.6 seconds back from these two and not lapping as quickly despite their battling. So it's likely to be one of these two cars that takes home the outright and the silver victory in GT4, because these are both silver driver combos. But the Mustang had that success penalty. If I don't, sorry, neither of them had a success penalty to serve either, so there was no advantage in the pit stops. This has been a straight race between the two of them. And with 26 minutes to go in the race, it is still nose to tail for the class lead. The number 7 Bentley goes through, puts a lap on them. That maybe just delayed Kimber slightly on the extra Redgate corner. And now through the Crater curves, maybe the Mustang, if it's slightly the better settled of the two, might be able to launch an attack. You sense, though, that without a mistake here for Kimber, it's not going to be as simple as simply diving up the inside and driving past the BMW. I think he's going to have to apply this pressure and try and force an error.
Yeah, he's not super close, so I think the pace is that similar, that is kind of the gap. There's not a surplus of speed and pace from Prio to be on his bumper, and that just gives Kimber that bit more of a chance as we see Cocker coming in, slotting in. Again, that was that attitude from Kimber. He just shut the door, not in an aggressive manner, but it was like, you're not having me here, I'm ruining my exit onto the back straight, you can wait a second. And kind of obvious that Cocker's not in a massive fight, so he's more happy to relinquish a few tenths to park up behind and wait on the exit for the overtake. The interesting track limits for me are starting to get more and more liberal, and it's a hard rule with track limits in the UK. We managed to change to be different to everyone else in the world, like a lot of things we do, but track limits being one of them. And the track limit rule is you have to keep your tyres on the track or the curb. You can't put a single inch over the back of the curb or a white line. Whereas in Europe, as long as you've got an inch of tyre on the track or a curb, you're legal. And at the moment, what we're seeing is illegal UK track limits, and we're already getting penalties. So it'll be interesting to see how the officials are looking at that, especially when it's on TV. it's a bit more black and white if you're right or wrong.
Yeah, Semprio is trying everything to get the lead away here, but there's no sense getting the lead and then being given a stop-go penalty for exceeding track limits, so he's got to try and box clever here, trying to desperately find a gap here, but once again, he's only shown the outside line through Hollywood. The number 15 Ford Mustang still struggling then to find a way past BMW. It's nice though, isn't it, to see Century Motorsport having some luck at last. We've documented their GT3 woes, but GT4 hasn't been that good for them either. We've got the Mercedes going slowly there, by the way, which I noticed a lap or two ago, and yet I don't think it's pitted. Scott Mulvin is at the wheel now of the 66 car, running way down in 37th place overall. But yeah, he was going quite slowly. There's clearly an issue there with that car. The GT4 class leaders safely negotiated it, so too did Dennis Lind, who is still 4th place outright. And this battle can therefore continue on its way. But yes, back to my point about Century Motorsport, they've had a bit of a disastrous start to the season really in both classes, but the GT4 cars that were so dominant last year, clearly nothing's really changed with the car. It's just the change of driver dynamics maybe, and this time around I think Prio's on the inside. Is he at the hairpin? Yes, he's going to go through surely. He finally got the car fired out of the chicane quickly enough and tight enough that he got to the inside of the hairpin and moved through. So maybe not going to be a race victory here for Century, but still they'll be happy to have been in the fight, and if they can hold on to a second place finish now, that will hopefully prompt a turnaround in fortune for the rest of the year.
Yeah, unfortunately I think they've used up a bit too much of their tyre grip to keep that first position for as long as they did, and they're going to struggle with that. But it'd be interesting to see if Prio gets any track limit warnings, would be my only thing there.
Well, one person who will be hoping he doesn't get track limits warnings is his teammate Scott Maxwell, who is down in the pit lane with Andy.
It certainly is. Scott, you've just had the most reclined position for someone that's battling at the front there. You seem very relaxed.
I'm not that relaxed. Don't be fooled by my luck. I'm just getting caught up in the race here with Sepp. He's driving amazing, and our car's been strong all day, so he just had to be patient. I think he should be good now that he's through, and he just has to save the tires, and we got 20-something minutes to go. But the Multimatic 4 guys have done a great job all weekend, so we're up on P1 right now, so knock on wood, it's a long way to go, but we have a good car, and Sepp's a great driver.
You look like you're still kind of wired as if you're behind the wheel.
Well, it was really hot in there. We don't have a lot of air circulating in there, and I didn't wear a cool suit or a helmet blower, so I'm sort of regretting that. But yeah, I'm more nervous now. I'm calm in the car. I could almost fall asleep, but out of the car, it's like watching my kid race here. So.
Well, I guess we'll find out in about 21 minutes how you get on.
Thanks very much.
All right, good luck. Thank you.
Well, the Ford Mustang then out in front, not racing away from the BMW in fairness, so, and a bit of a mistake there actually for Semprio, who continues to use a lot of curb at the chicane, doesn't he? Now, I sort of understood that when he was applying the pressure, because the exit from that corner was clearly where he was strong and he was trying to tee up that move. Now he's in front, does he still need to take those risks with track limits, in your opinion?
No. No, I think that's just a bit of youthful exuberance, really. There's literally zero need for it. He just needs to rein it back in. As soon as you start getting the attention of the race director or the officials for track limits, it's like having a target on your back and they just keep going for you. So he needs to chill out. The team needs to be screaming at him on the radio now just to chill, look in your mirror and manage that gap. Keep it at 2 seconds, and that's all you need to do. As we see, team has caught the back up of Johnny Adam, but more interestingly, it's kind of dragged Rob Bell along with him, which is it's a three-way fight for the lead, which only involves 2 cars.
But that was not what we expected, but actually this might have backfired slightly for TF Sport, because in overtaking Rob Bell, team has sort of dragged him up to the race leader with him, and Rob, maybe with a bit of a slipstream, has not had to work, and through the traffic maybe hasn't had to work quite as hard and hasn't been held up as much. So Rob Bell might yet benefit from all of this. The lead gap is under a second again now, but it is not the first 2 cars in this group, it's the first and the third car. The car we're on board with now, Rob Bell is second. The Aston Martin directly in front of him is Nicky Team, 1 lap down. The one in front of him is Johnny Adam, though, the race leader, as they... Johnny Adam defending the race lead in the closing stages. Oh, and look what's up the road, a Ford Mustang. He will be having flashbacks here to Silverstone, I'm sure. Up the hill they will go. He's got Nicky Team harrying him as well. Now, if you're Johnny, what do you do? Do you let Nicky go, or do you hope to keep him behind and use him as a bit of a buffer?
So whatever happens will show TF's kind of tactics here. If they're willing to play the less sporting card, Nicky will sit there and be his wingman. If they're just about the racing, then Nicky will carry on his way. Obviously has more pace than Johnny, and we'll see there. It's a hard decision. If I was a team boss, winning's more important than anything else. I'd keep Nicky there and use him as a blocker. Obviously, the sporting manner is to carry on the way. If Rob can get close enough to Nicky and the blue flags come back out, then that's a different equation. The blue flag means Nicky cannot defend. He has to concede his position after X amount of blue flags there. But it looks like they've got enough pace to kind of stop that from happening. And yeah, cars are running pretty close together. And Nicky not looking like he wants to overtake him, in my kind of judgment of his body language, kind of sitting a little bit behind, only ever looking to the outside of Johnny rather than showing his nose and his intent. So it'll be an interesting last 18 minutes.
Well, and Nicky Team is some 20 seconds behind Ben Green, so he's not likely to gain anything out of this either. Well, let's see if we can maybe shed some light on what the team tactics are. Down at TF Sport is Andy J. Andy, what have you got for us?
Well, let's find out, shall we? I mean, I'm tense just watching over your shoulder, Graham. So what are you going through right now?
I'm trying not to watch too closely. It's a little bit tense to watch this after Silverstone.
Are there some team tactics happening? Are you going to let Nicky through, perhaps?
I don't know. I think he's a lap down, but I'm trying not to think about it and not get involved. I'll let these guys determine what happens. But no, it was a good first stint. Really happy. Did what we came here to do, and now it's, for me, a waiting game. We'll see what happens.
You're not nervous stood talking to me on telly, are you? You're nervous because you can cut the tension with a knife, right?
Yeah, I don't like watching these things at the best of times, but after Silverstone to come so close to a win, this is, yeah, I'm not watching. I'm just speaking to people.
Fair enough. Okay, well, we'll catch you in about 17 minutes. Thank you.
One way or the
Cheers.
other.
Yeah, best luck.
Well, Graham Davidson, I assure you, does enjoy his motor racing, but not many drivers, Joe, enjoy watching from the pit lane because it's all out of your control, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I'm the worst for it. I'm like a backseat driver, passenger all at one when I'm out of the car. And well, the engineers I work with literally will just turn my radio off so I can't talk to them anymore. Because if I was the team manager here with Johnny Adam, you'd just be keeping him calm and working out what Nicky's going to do and advising him of that. But Rob Bell's, it seems like the pace has shifted back to the McLaren's favour now. It looked like McLaren was stronger at the start, then it shifted to Aston Midston, and to me it's gone full circle back there. And these GT4s are just kind of nibbling into their lap times, not killing it, as we see the avocados drive through. I didn't see what that was for, actually.
No, I can't remember now, but it was track limits, I think, wasn't it? Tom Onslow Cole, that is, as I said, making a return, a welcome return. He races over in Europe these days in a Mercedes, not with the Team ABBA Racing squad, but still knows the car fairly well, and I think may still be in the top 10, but Callum McLeod in 11th place is catching him, and interestingly Callum has just overtaken Ryan Ratcliffe as well, so McLeod into 11th place outright. You did say earlier on, didn't you, Joe, that this GT3 McLaren in particular is good on its tyres. Is that what we're seeing here then? Is that what you're alluding to with this late run pace that we're seeing?
Because it makes me look clever, then yes, it's definitely that, but it can be so many factors, really can. The teams have so many setup tweaks they can do to make the car feel different, but also how long it lasts on its tyres and everything like that. So yeah, you've got so many different aspects to go on it, but it definitely looks good with McLaren out the corner. It's not sliding, looking after its tyre, we'd kind of say. Every time you see it light up the rears and leave some set of 11s, that's rubber that's no longer on your tyre. So good from a weight perspective, but bad from a performance. And the Aston just looks a little bit edgy, like we saw with Mark Farmer out the chicane. It's got it in it where it definitely just gives it to you and spits you off.
Yeah, exactly, and that can't do anything for the confidence of the drivers, although Johnny Adam and Nicky Team, with the experience, the years of experience they've had of racing cars like this, they've seen it all before, and they know, but are maybe better equipped to deal with an ill-handling car than the AM drivers, and they know, well, okay, if it's going to spit me out over that bump, don't drive so aggressively over that particular part of the circuit.
So we see the team manager for of Nicky Team, TF, getting called up to race control, so that could be an interesting, just what's going on, please keep us advised kind of chat from race control, or it could be a bit more brutal of what the hell are you doing there, get out of the way, this is a race that you're not involved in.
He's not really holding up Rob Bell though, I would say. If anything, he's harrying the leader, isn't he? In fact, having actively now trying to overtake Johnny Adam, I would say. So whether or not that is even related to this situation, because we saw a couple of other team managers being summoned to race control as well. So yeah, this it's a fascinating dynamic, this. There are still 14.5 minutes to go in this race, and the leaders are, I reckon, going to be less than a second apart again. you could argue maybe that if Nicky Team's car wasn't there, then maybe Rob Bell would be able to get a bit closer, but he's not right underneath the rear wing of Nicky. Would you say that Nicky is actively trying to get past here? He doesn't look like he's just sitting there and riding tandem, is he?
I think Nicky had the pace to get past Johnny, so I think this is maybe a bit of theatrics to make it look like he wants to get past. I think Johnny's never looked like he's put the car in a defensive position to stop a move from Nicky, so I still think everything is above board. I'm not suggesting anything else. I just think it's an interesting dynamic that you don't normally get in GT racing, where a teammate can literally be a rear gunner for your respective teammates so easily for a race win. The stakes are so high, as we see a battle further down the field.
Yeah, this is for 11th position then between the number 7 Bentley of Ryan Ratcliffe, the number 8 Mercedes of Tom Onslow Cole, and lapping them, the 5th place number 72 Lamborghini of Phil Keane, or trying to anyway. We believe there were a few fisticuffs between these two coming out of the hairpin, the Bentley and McLaren, the Mercedes, that is.
And this really kills Keane's chance of catching Lind. His pace had been better. He had got it down to 6 seconds. It's growing back to 9. He's going to lose a shed load here. But interestingly, Lind is taking time out of Cocker. That gap is half now in the last 15-20 minutes. So that could be interesting as we see Onslow Cole now get out of the way. So that's a battle that could get interesting with a bit of traffic assist if it hurts Cocker more than Lind over the kind of next, I don't know what we've got really, 7 laps probably.
Yeah, 4.2 seconds there between 3rd place Johnny Cocker and the 4th place Dennis Lind. So we'll monitor that gap with interest. This is Tom Onslow Cole. Well, there wasn't really a gap. He had half the car on the grass down the right-hand side of the road. Tom Onslow Cole is a former touring car racer, though, and I'm sure has pulled that move a few times down the pit straight at Donington Park. Now he has allowed through the 5th place man, Phil Keane, so too does Ryan Ratcliffe. Ryan doing his best here to hang on to a position from the number 8 car behind. Tom Onslow Cole will look for another good exit. Clearly the Mercedes getting good traction off this hairpin. That's why he was able to pull alongside a lap ago. Ratcliffe steadfastly stays to the right-hand side of the road this time. Says, you're not going back through there again. So Onslow Cole says, OK, I'll go to the outside line instead then. Can he go right around the outside? There's some traffic in front that could come into play. Through the right-hander, over the grass. That was always going to happen, wasn't it? You're never going to allow a car to drive right around the outside of Redgate, are you?
There's nothing more embarrassing as a driver getting overtaken around the outside. It's like having your flies open all day on your trousers and only getting told at 7 o'clock. It's the worst thing that can happen. It makes you look stupid, makes you feel stupid. So yeah, you have a car on your outside, you always just release the steering lock and just let them run out wide, and it's kind of fully fair, which doesn't always look it, but you won't ever get a penalty for it.
No rules against crowding people to the edge of the circuit in British GT, thankfully. And so Tom Onslow Cole doing everything he can then to get through. But in fact, he's slowing, is he? Tom Onslow Cole, I think, was slowing coming out of McLean's in the background. We'll try and pick up on that in a moment. Let's see whether or not he appears at all. But the Mercedes was way offline and appeared to have dropped back. Where is he? Yeah, there he is. He is going slowly. And is that a right rear puncture? Now, that could be a few things. There's quite a bit of debris and gravel on the road, but also hammering those curbs lap after lap isn't that good for those tyres.
Yeah, we've seen him run wide at Redgate, and also obviously on that side of the car on the grass over the pit straight, and there's so much debris off all of these cars. We've seen a bit from the Barwell splitter cam as he takes the shorter national circuit back to the pits, which it's a hard thing to do because now he's got to rejoin the circuit in quite a hard place. He's been lucky with traffic. I honestly don't know what the rule is because he's just done 3 corners left, so he's done track limits, but track limits plus. So I don't quite know what the penalty is. He's so far out of it. Hopefully they don't do something stupid. They just let him crack on and save some damage. But yeah, interesting way to get back to the pits. I
would imagine if they retire the car, it will matter little. If they don't, then they may be frowned upon, but they're putting it up on the jacks and they're going to change the tyre. Not our decision to make, thankfully, but yeah, that's an interesting one. That was the Robert chicane on the shorter national circuit that he took. That's not the layout on which we're racing this weekend. Either way, they're going to lose so much time that it's sort of irrelevant, but they would have arguably lost more time if they'd have done the full lap. Anyway, Tom Onslow Cole back on his way, and been a bit of a race to forget, unfortunately, for anyone driving a Mercedes in both GT3 and GT4. One of the cars that's been really strong in the previous rounds in both categories, not having much fun here at Donington Park. So we are remarkably into the final 10 minutes of racing now. The first hour and 50 minutes of this race have flown by. Still only 1.2 seconds in it at the front of the field between Johnny Adam and Rob Bell. 1.2 seconds is the margin between those two. 20.5 seconds further back is Johnny Cocker in third, and Dennis Lynn continuing to close the gap as well. 3.6 seconds the gap now, despite the fact that Cocker just did a personal best lap. It still wasn't quite as quick as the chasing Lind in fourth. Phil Keane is fifth, so we've got 3 Lamborghinis inside the top 5. But it is Aston Martin from McLaren at the head of the field, and still no change in the order here then. Rob Bell still stuck behind the lapped car of Nicky Team, and also the Invictus Games Racing Jaguar getting out of the way there. That's Matthew George, who at Silverstone raced in the Jaguar in one stint and then jumped out and dived into the Generation AMR Aston Martin. He was a busy boy at Silverstone.
Yeah, I spoke to him earlier actually, and it's quite rare to do that in the rules, but he's saying how he was nervous about hitting his teammate in the sister car, and saying it'd be quite cool. You could DNF 2 of your own cars in one mistake. So yeah, Matt's done a mega job with that Jag. It's kind of an interesting car, that Jag. It's the only one in existence as a pair of cars, but they've built that themselves pretty much, and it's been an amazing project with the charity they do as well. So it'll be interesting to see where that car goes pace-wise. The performance is getting better and better on that Jag.
Incident involving car 8, Tom Onslow Cole, is under investigation, and we believe might be investigated post-race as well. I'm not sure what that's for. It may well be the alternative route that he took back to the pit lane. We can only speculate on that, but yeah, the number 8 car, again, things going from bad to worse to even worse, really. Yeah, the Invictus Racing Jaguar that's had a decent start to the season. They were on the podium at the first race, first meeting of the year, but then since then they've struggled to maintain that sort of performance. They've had some Pro-Am class podiums though along the way, which has been nice to see. 7 3/4 minutes to go then. Leaders up at Coppice Corner. In GT4, by the way, Seb Prio is now 5.3 seconds clear of Mark Kimber, who is 4.9 ahead of Dean McDonald. So that gap is coming down, but whether it comes right down before the flag, I'm not sure. Richard Williams is 4th now in the Stellar Performance Audi, but only 0.6 of a second clear of Jordan Collard in the number 5 car, which is 5th in the championship. So that's a significant battle in GT4 as well. Nicky Team, whilst I was looking at the time screen, typically has gone past Charlie Adam, and now we have the race leaders absolutely together, so that serves me right, doesn't it? 7 minutes or so from the end, I thought things had calmed down, and apparently the race leader just had a moment. So Johnny Adam then, still in the lead of the race, but now has Rob Bell right with him. On board here with Rob Bell, through the chicane they go. Does he run wide on the exit of the corner? Yes, he does. An odd mistake for someone of Johnny Adams' experience to make there. Couldn't quite tell whether or not he clipped the curb or just understeered off wide, but either way, Johnny Adam now is under some serious pressure from Rob Bell. Sean Balfe took over in the first stint in that car, and now all of a sudden sees a genuine chance for his car to take the race lead.
Sean, you're very calm and collected despite what's happening on track. Tell me what you're feeling.
Well, it's quite exciting, isn't it? I'm much happier here having a drink and a banana than being in the car. It's quite vicious. There's not a lot of rest time at all around Donington, and you know, in the traffic and racing hard, it's really 100% focused. So yeah, I'm happy because I've got a really good teammate, and whatever the result today, I know the team and Rob's done the best. So good to see them race it out now.
You've just seen an error by TF Sport. That's giving you a real opportunity, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, look, British GT has this way of unfolding, particularly at the end. So I think, you know, for everybody involved, it's just nice to let everybody race it out, and what will be at the end, and the best car and team will win.
Good for you. Talking like a fan rather than someone heavily involved in the battle. Good for you. We'll chat to you shortly, I'm sure. Thank you, Sean.
Thanks, Andy. Well, so now, if you're on Beljo, you've finally got your chance now. Nicky Team has disappeared off of the road, and you've seen the mistake for Johnny Adam. You're feeling good now, aren't you?
Yeah, the ball is in your court, and you're very much going to be on the front foot now. So Rob's going to be very proactive and aggressive. Doesn't have the championship to concern so much. Not that Johnny and Graham do quite as much, but they're more in the hunt. So he's just got to go for it. As we see a replay here.
Dennis Lind, this is.
That was his chance of catching Cocker gone then. As you can see, quite how bumpy the grass is here.
You can do some damage to the car doing that, can't you?
Yeah, and yourself as well. It's pretty firm in there. You're getting a bit of a pogo stick up the gentleman area as well, which is interesting with the seatbelts being tight. But back to Rob, he's just got to go for it. Rob is our most experienced driver on the McLaren roster, so I'm not telling him what to do, but he will be giving it everything he's got, and even flashing his headlights for Rob is aggressive. He is very placid and calm, normally out of the car, so it'll be interesting to see what he's like there with a big slide through the chicane. So both of these boys are gun to the head, giving it everything they've got for the last, well, I think we're probably going to have 3 laps by the timing.
Okay, so that's your mentality if you're on Bell. Now pretend you're Johnny Adam. You don't have to do the accent, but just tell me, how are you feeling? 5 minutes to go at Silverstone, you're in the lead, you're under all this pressure, and contact with the back marker takes you out of the race. Now, 4 minutes to go, Donington Park, under pressure for the race lead, and look, there's loads of traffic to deal with as well. 1 car less to deal with though, and that is the second place car in GT4, the number 42 Century Motorsport BMW of Mark Kimber is off. I think that's at McLean's into the tyre wall. There will be at least yellow flags at that part of the circuit now for the remainder of the race, but that is a real shame, just when it looked like they were on for a really good result, and the 42 car off the road. Right then, go on Johnny Adam, what are you thinking?
Thank God for this GT4 traffic, because he's suddenly got a massive gap. So yeah, he would have been all you canny as he went across the grass on the chicane, but he's just had that rub of the green, and this could really hurt Rob now with the yellow flags out at McLean's. He won't be able to overtake this GT4 car, so it is literally torture. And unfortunately, I think that is it. I think that
look
is
at
race
that gap
done.
now.
That is, yeah, that is a right kick in the. Yeah, that's annoying.
Well, for Johnny Adam, he will think, right, redemption that is, for what happened in the last minutes at Silverstone. But for Rob Bell, how frustrating is that? Because to clarify the point, under yellow flags, you're not allowed to overtake anybody, regardless of whether it's for position or not. He had to sit behind the GT4 car, which is slowing down maybe a bit more than Rob would have done for the yellow flags. There's nothing he could have done there, but it's probably cost him the race. Yeah,
it is just bad luck and circumstance, and you get the luck and you don't get the luck, as you said. Not even the race before, the last race, Johnny Adam got unlucky and now has just got lucky. So you just hope over a season it kind of ebbs and flows, so it's an equal nature by the end of it. But yeah, that is it, unless we have a big mistake from Johnny Adam, which that never happens twice in a row.
Well, the thing is, there are 2 laps still to go. Those yellow flags are likely to stay there to the flag. If Johnny Adam catches a back marker at that part of the circuit, all of a sudden things change again. So you never know, and I'm sure Rob Bell won't be giving in. That looked unassisted, didn't it, really, for the 42 car, almost as if something broke.
Yeah, I've had a very similar crash there at that corner 2 years ago, brake failure. Donington is so hard on brakes. This is a great onboard here with a GT4 car. That's McDonald, I believe, in second place overall. 7 seconds behind Prio, catching good, like a second a lapper in the last few laps, but too little, too late. You see the concentration, a couple of blinks just to make sure his eyes don't dry up, but that is a long old stint in that car. You can see the sweat beading off his forehead there.
Significantly for Dean McDonald, he and Callum Pointed are championship leaders by 2 points over Scott Maxwell and Seb Prio, the class leaders. So they're still going to lose the points lead, but by a significantly reduced margin. This has really worked into their favour. It also means the stellar performance Audi will inherit a podium place, but only by 1.7 seconds at the moment. Richard Williams is ahead of Jordan Collard in the number 5 Tolman Motorsports McLaren as well. So all change here towards the end. Meanwhile, we're going to go to a replay here. I think this is to talk us through what was going on between the leading GT3 cars. The gap is now 3.9 seconds, and it all started down here. You made the point, Joe. It wasn't really working in Rob Bell's favour to start with here. He was losing time anyway, and they just couldn't get past this Mercedes quick enough.
Yeah, just got held up in craning, so he's already probably lost a second and a half, and then the Merc's got good straight line speed for a GT4, and then the yellow flags will be visible in the next 50 metres, and that's it. Day done for the overtake at that corner. There's nothing he could do. And there's not even the time to recover. The leaders are now on their last lap. And that obviously yellow flag's just going to stay there. I think they've done the right decision as we see a slow Audi.
Third place in GT4, that is, would you believe? Richard Williams, who had just inherited that podium place, he's going to hand it over to Jordan Collard now in the number 5 car. Jordan Collard and Lewis Proctor 5th in the points, but disaster then for the... No one wants to finish on the podium in GT4 today, do they? That's 2 cars now from podium places that have fallen by the wayside inside the last 4 or 5 minutes. This is why, even in a 2-hour endurance race like this, you cannot take your eyes away from the screen for a moment, because things can change right down to the last seconds. Well, we are into the final seconds of this race now, and Johnny Adam is just 4 corners away from taking the first victory of the year, would you believe, for TF Sport in either of the classes. It's been a really disappointing season for them so far, but they are slowly but surely working their way back into championship contention. They're not going to take quite as many points away from the Barwell Motorsport Lamborghinis as they might have liked, but really it's about more than that. It's about the win, it's about the confidence and building that momentum up now into the second half of the season. Johnny Adam is going to come through to take the checkered flag. The car that started on pole with Graham Davidson wins round number 6 of the 2019 British GT Championship in a Donington Park thriller. That was a fantastic 2 hours of racing. Rob Bell comes home in second place. He and Sean Balfour will be very happy to have made it onto the podium this time. Graham Davidson, likewise, he can breathe now for the first time in about 45 minutes or so. What a drive that was from that pair.
Yeah, I think for me, Graham was driver of the day in that first stint. He really cemented the foundations there for Johnny to take over and get the win. So great from Graham. Sorry, hopefully remembers to smile. All these amps are paying a lot of money to be here, so I think they need to remember to enjoy it sometimes, as we see the GT4 leader relatively unopposed now, as everyone else got bored of trying to challenge him. And yeah, he's done well not to get any track limit warnings after I thought he was maybe a little bit liberal with where the white line starts and finishes. But a great run from both of those guys in that Multimatic car, and he's kind of just letting the GT3s go to make sure there's no issues on the last few corners.
Yep, this then is going to be the victory for the number 15 Ford Mustang, the Multimatic Ford Mustang in GT4, which takes its second win of the year and becomes the first car in GT4 to win 2 races in the season, and it will give them a slender championship advantage. They will take the points lead now away from the HHC Motorsport McLaren of Dean McDonald and Callum Poynton. They come home second though, and the damage points-wise is limited. Third position will go to Jordan Collard, would you believe, who was 5th about 2 laps ago and comes home 3rd in GT4 in the Tolman Motorsport McLaren that he shares with Lewis Proctor. Tolman were unlucky to lose the number 4 car that was leading for most of the first hour with Josh Smith on board. At least they managed to salvage a podium at the end of the day. Well, a brilliant race that was all round. So much action in both categories. There is the class winner, as we said, in GT4, Seb Prio then. 8.8 seconds clear of Dean McDonald in the end. Sorry, Billy Johnson, this is the other Ford, which is the Pro-Am class winner in GT4 then. And where did they come in the end? They were actually, yes, second in GT4 outright. So it's a Multimatic. No, excuse me, I'll get it right in a minute. That's the 57 McDonald. There was second place. Yeah, the number 19 Mustang was Billy Johnson, 4th place in GT4 outright, and wins the Pro-Am category. So both the Multimatic cars winning their respective classes within GT4. TF Sport get their first win in GT3. Lots of feel-good stories come out of that race. Johnny Adam, there's not such a feel-good story, unfortunately, for the stellar performance Audi. It's always the way, isn't it? The car can run faultlessly for an hour and 59 minutes, and when something breaks on the last lap, that is so heartbreaking, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just horrible, and you just think, how does it time that badly? You think the car's done so many laps over a weekend, even in his life, for it to fail at that point is awful luck. And yeah, back to base, and they'll have to find out what happened. But I think we're about to see a very calm but smiling Johnny Adam and Graham Davidson.
A very relieved Johnny Adam, one would imagine, given the pressure that he was under there. Sustained attack. Really, throughout the race, he was under pressure, wasn't he, throughout the entirety of that second stint, even when it was just his teammate Nicky Team behind him. Nicky was giving him a workover, but there is your winner of round number 6, or one of your winners of round number 6 of the 2019 British GT Championship. And Johnny Adam will very shortly, I'm sure, find Graham Davidson, and they will be very pleased with their win. They will become the 5th different winners in GT3. So we've now had 5 different winners in both categories in the first 6 races. And Johnny Adam getting congratulated by everybody, really, for what was a sterling drive there. Neither of them, neither he or Graham Davidson, put a foot wrong all race. You mentioned that Graham Davidson's stint was flawless. His whole weekend's been flawless, actually, really, hasn't it? Because they were so strong all day yesterday. Graham put in that astonishing lap in qualifying in the AM session. Johnny Adam taking over with a pretty much inch-perfect second stint, despite the intense pressure he was under. Well, Andy J, I can see, is down there getting ready to have a word with Johnny Adam, and he will, I'm sure, be a very happy Scotsman, a lot happier than he was at this time a couple of weeks ago at Silverstone. And in a moment or two, we will be able to hear from our race winner. Graham Davidson will be making his way down there to congratulate him, I'm sure. Big crowd on hand, by the way, here at Donington Park. We've managed to find a relatively empty grandstand there, but I can assure you that the paddock was absolutely teeming with people pre-race. The pre-race pit walk, likewise, is becoming a very popular championship, and you can see why. We've had 5 different winners now from 6 races in GT3, and with our 5th different winners of the season is Andy J.
I certainly am, and Johnny, you've literally just whispered to me, finally. It's overdue, isn't it, this one?
Yeah, you know, it's lovely to get the first win for the new Vantage GT3 in the UK. Cars really good, you know, really nice throughout the race. It was hard, you know, the McLaren was very fast. Rob drove a fair race, but was very strong in certain areas of the lap. And yeah, it was a bit tricky. We sort of struggled a little bit towards the end with, it's such a heavy circuit for brakes as Donington, massive stops towards the end of the lap, and we're trying to kind of control that towards the end with temperature. But car was really good. Graham's stint was really good, controlled it from the front. I think he drove one of the best stints I've seen him drive this year. Nice to get some points on the board, so let's get head down and see what this championship can do.
There were a couple of moments during your stint where the demons of Silverstone looked like they were coming in, and you had to really hold it off, didn't you?
Yeah, you know, everyone's in their own battle out there, and this circuit's got some pinch points for GT3 and GT4 passing, but everyone was fair, everyone was great today, no issues at all, and it's just testament to the championship how good everyone's doing out there. But yeah, really good, really happy for everyone at Aston Martin Racing, because this is a new car to customers this year, and we've worked really hard behind the scenes to showcase how good it is. So to get the first win in Pro-Am with a good gentleman driver like Graham is really nice.
Which is the heavier emotion right now, elation or relief?
Both, really. It's nice to get a win, obviously, after the success of the championship last year. It's nice to get a little bit of momentum going now. So it's still a lot to play for, 3 big races coming up. We've got a bit of pace in this Aston now, so let's see what can unfold.
Well done, mate. Happy days. Good stuff. Well done, Johnny. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Andy J. Well, yeah, a very, very relieved Johnny Adam there, and a very pleased Seb Prio and Scott Maxwell, who take the victory in GT4 and the GT4 Silver category as well, and take the points lead. We are now solidly into the second half of the season as well, so points are starting to become all the more crucial. What have we learned today, Joe, do you think, that we could apply in a couple of months' time when we're back here for the title decider? Because this is a unique opportunity in British GT to race at the same track twice, in particular the track that we finished the championship at. It's almost guaranteed that it's going to go down to the wire in both categories. So Aston Martin strong this weekend. Lamborghini stronger than in the past, maybe, at Donington Park in GT3, and we'll maybe see that will be the case again in September at the season finale. Well, we'll get to that in a moment. We'll hand down now again to Andy J, who has got our GT4 winner, Seb Prio.
I certainly do, and Seb, you're a very happy man, aren't you?
Oh, it's happy. That was mad to win that race. It was tough, but we won. We got the win. The car was amazing, and I felt really in the groove. Tired now though after that, but I gave it everything, and I'm really happy to win. You have literally left everything in the car, haven't you? You're actually struggling to breathe at the moment. It's hard to get back out of the car and get back to normal reality, you know, but that was good and that was tough. So I was really happy with everything, how it went, and yeah, I'm happy to get the win. Sum it up for me, what does it mean to you? Is this the best ever? For sure, I mean, the car's amazing and it's good for the team and good for the championship. So it's everything I wished for, you know, for a win, and we did it, so I can't be any happier than this.
Well, you can. Look, here it comes. Double dose of happiness. Well done.
I'm tired.
Well done, guys. Go relax. Well done. Congratulations. Brilliant. Well done, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Well, back to the point we were making in a moment. Results first. Then let's confirm the way in which it finished then after 2 hours of racing at Donington Park. It is Aston Martin on top. Graham Davidson and Johnny Adam win the victory at long last. Sean Balfe and Rob Bell in the McLaren are second. Sam Dehan and Johnny Cocker are third. 3 different makers of car in the top 3. Aston Martin, McLaren and Lamborghini. It's then another couple of Lamborghinis though. Michael Igoe and Dennis Lind in the WPI example are 4th. Adam Ballon and Phil Keane get some valuable points in 5th ahead of Andrew Howard and Ross Good. Rick Parfitt and Seb Morris, then Dominic Paul and Ben Green, with the Mark Farmer and Nicky Team TF car in 9th. And Ram Racing did well actually in the end to salvage a top 10. Team Parker Racing's Bentley is 11th, Team ABBA Racing are 12th in their Mercedes. The GCAT car, which we didn't see much of, but the All-Am entry, get themselves a 13th place finish, and they are not the last of the GT3 cars either. In GT4, Seb Prio and Scott Maxwell take the victory ahead of, in 2nd place in the end, the Dean McDonald and Callum Poynton car. Lewis Proctor and Jordan Collard are 3rd. Sir Chris Hoy and Billy Johnson, look at that. They are class winners in Pro-Am and 4th place overall, with Ash Hand and Tom Canning rounding out the top 5 in the GT4 category. There were a few that fell by the wayside towards the end, including, perhaps most significantly, the number 42 Century Motorsport BMW, which will be a non-finisher, having been running in a solid 2nd place prior to that point, and looking for what I believe might have been their first podium finish of the year for Century Motorsport in either GT3 or GT4 outright. So a frustrating end to their race, the same for the stellar performance Audi, of course. So as we now head into the final 3 races of the season, here is how the points look. It is an 8.5 point advantage for Adam Ballon and Phil Keane over their teammates Johnny Cocker and Sam Dehaan in GT3. We then go back to 72.5 points for Graham Davidson and Johnny Adam, who are slowly but surely, stealth-like, working their way into the picture. They've overhauled the Optimum Motorsport car, which is still the lead silver car in GT3. Michael Igoe there in 5th position, despite having not done a full season campaign. It's getting very, very tight in GT3. And the same will be true of GT4, where it will be the Mustang that is now out in front. Podium celebrations, though, about to begin. And it is a very, very happy time, this, of course, for the drivers after 2 hours of high-intensity racing. They can finally get to let some of that stress and that pressure out. This is the overall top 3 then in GT3. Johnny Cocker and Adam Ballon are up there. Also Sean Bell from Rob Bell. But our race winners for the first time this season, and as Johnny Adam pointed out, the first victory for the new Aston Martin V8 Vantage in British GT. It's Johnny Adam and Graham Davidson who take home the victory. And Joe, they are now starting to become genuine championship rivals. And back to the point I was trying to make before, if Aston Martin have gone well here today, there's no reason to expect any different when we're back here for the decider in September.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously coming back to exactly the same configuration of circuit, they know where they're strong, and hopefully they can keep that momentum going on their side. And also you'll regroup the team and the engineer and kind of highlight the 3 areas where you're at your weakest, and then that is your main impetus when you come back here to change and improve. Obviously everyone's got the same thought process, everyone wants to get better, so it really is how hard the teams work to try and turn that around. So yeah, great result, and that really does put them back in the championship hunt. Outsiders, but they've got a chance, I would say, mathematically now, when you look at the championship table.
Well, and look at the way things can change just in a heartbeat, and it's not always that drivers make mistakes or that cars aren't very quick at certain tracks. It's just bad luck sometimes can strike, and Barwell have in a way done everything they can to lose this points advantage in the last couple of rounds, and they still have managed to come away with their cars 1 and 2. The champagne flies then, a big crowd assembled down by the Donington Park podium, and I'm sure they've all just enjoyed a cracking 2 hours of British GT Championship racing. These are the top 3 overall in GT3, and of course also Pro-Am, the leading silver car, was down in 11th position in GT3. And we do definitely see in GT4 it's the silver cars that tend to be right at the sharp end. In GT3 sometimes they seem to struggle a bit. Ryan Ratcliffe and Glyn Geddy winning the GT3 silver element of the race, and they in the end did that fairly handsomely. After the issues for the Wilkinson Aston Martin, and it caught fire in the pit lane, and that's cost them dear because they were 3rd in the points, and that's why the 47 TF Sport car has been able to overhaul them. So the next podium is being ready. Eva Hildebrand from Sunoco is doing the honours today of presenting trophies and bottles of champagne to very happy drivers up on the Donington Park podium. And now we do indeed get our next podium presentation underway, and this is for GT4. And the 3rd place in GT4 silver, and overall going to the Tolman Motorsport McLaren. In 2nd place, the championship leaders, Dean McDonald and Callum Pointer, coming into this round. 2nd place, not a bad result for those two, but they will lose the points lead now to Seb Prio and Scott Maxwell, who make their way to the top step of the podium with beaming smiles on Seb Prio's face at least. Scott Maxwell, I think, just relieved that it's all over, having done the 2nd stint for Seb. The adrenaline probably still pumping through his body, but they will be very, very happy when they get home tonight and they look back at the championship situation, and they are going to come out of Donington Park on top, not only in the outright GT4 championship, but also in the Silver Cup as well. Eva Hildebrand there making the presentation then to our GT4 winners at Donington Park, and it is the first 2-time winning car in GT4 this year, because they won the 2nd race at Alton Park as well. And it was the HHC Motorsport McLaren of McDonald and Poynton that won the first race. So really through all of the... It's been very hard to predict GT4, Joe, but they have sort of been the two teams that have been more consistent than anybody else, haven't they, really? They've had now 2 wins for the Mustang, 1 for the HHC McLaren. They've both been on the podium fairly regularly. Are they now emerging as the 2 title favourites?
Yeah, they seem to be the most mistake-free, just getting that monotonous, grinding out results, even when the car's not at its best, the BOP's not helping. You just need to keep hauling points, and as we see so many times in championships, you don't win it with the most out-and-out wins. It is finishing every race that you can and just keep those points going. As soon as you get a DNF, you need to just get like 2 or 3 wins to even get back your point deficit. So, yeah, those 2 guys in either car and the team seem to be doing a good job. Both new to the championship. HHC only been with us with Junettas before, so they got on with the McLaren really, really well, and then Multimatic first time, so good to see those guys really taking it to the regulars.
No, absolutely, you're quite right, and that level of competition in GT4 only likely to increase, I think, as we go through the rest of the season. So we now get our Pro-Am GT4 podium. Mark Murfitt and Michael Broadhurst, 3rd place in their Fox Motorsport Mercedes that had a fairly solid and untroubled run. In 2nd place, Kelvin Fletcher, sporting some extra ballast, I noticed this weekend. He's decided to grow a moustache for reasons that I'm sure he could explain. And he and Martin Plowman come home 2nd position, and they're looking really strong now in the Pro-Am element of GT4. They arrived here, the points leaders, by some 11 points over Michael O'Brien and Graham Johnson. The class winner, though, is going to be, once again, Multimatic Motorsport Ford Mustangs, but this time the number 19 squad, Billy Johnson and Sir Chris Hoy, on the top step of the Pro-Am podium, and 4th place outright as well. And we definitely see in GT4 that the Pro-Am teams sometimes struggle to fight for overall top 3s and top 5s. That's a really impressive performance, isn't it?
Yeah, really good. As I said, some of those bronzes driving more like silvers, which is testament to the car, but also their performance, which is absolutely spot on. Great to see Chris Hoy loving his racing in British GT again.
Yeah, no, you're right, and that was a phenomenal performance from the pair of them, and they will very much enjoy the champagne shower that they are about to trigger. Oh, there we go. Martin Plowman wins the battle to get the cork out of the bottle. Calvin Fletcher a bit slow. The trouble is, if you go early, then you've got nothing left to defend with when the last driver gets the cork out. Kelvin, they're more interested in cooling down the crowd that are onlooking. But Sir Chris Hoy, a winner in British GT in the Pro-Am category of GT4. And a really, really impressive performance that was from both of the Ford Mustangs this weekend.
And you can see the drivers normally only take 1 swig of the champagne. Marco Attard at Calais Wine Superstore provides it, and it tastes like paint stripper. It is awful stuff. I've saved a bottle once before, gone to some friends and drank it, and we all like literally just threw it up. Yeah, cat food's been better than that.
Well, there we go. A more shining endorsement you couldn't hope to hear, and it's put to good use though, and it is definitely a great celebration for the drivers who have worked hard for that champagne. They'll enjoy it one way or another, I am sure. So podium presentations then done. We'll wipe our camera off. Whilst that's going on, let's remind ourselves of some of the action in the last 2 hours. It's been a fantastic 2 hours of racing in the 6th round of the British GT Championship. The 47 Aston Martin, started by Graham Davidson from pole position, led into the first corner, while behind them, Andrew Howard in the Beechdean car had a storming start from 6th place, briefly into 3rd at the first corner. In GT4, the 57 HHC Motorsport car had a grandstand view of Mark Farmer's first off-track excursion. It would not be his last. The Ram Racing car had to serve a penalty for contact in the early stages. Several GT3 cars were in strife early on though, including the number 7 Bentley, which was started in this one by Glyn Geddy. He had a spin. There were also issues for the number 72 Lamborghini, which made a decisive move up the inside to salvage eventually a top 5 finish. When the pit stops began, there were only a couple of seconds separating the number 47 Aston Martin and the Balf Motorsport McLaren. It was much the same situation when they came out of the pit lane. but there were dramas for Optimum Motorsport as the 96 car expired in fiery fashion at the end of the pit lane, and they were out of the race. That would eventually cost them third place in the championship. Barwell Motorsport battling away with the JRM Motorsport Bentley Continental of Seb Morris in the second half of the race. Phil Keane went to the inside, there was contact between the two. Both survived without major damage, and the Lamborghini was able to escape to a podium finish by the flag. In GT4, there was a brilliant battle going on between the 42 Century Motorsport BMW and Seb Prio in the Multimatic Mustang. He got up the inside eventually at the hairpin and was able to pull away into a lead he would never rescind. At the front of the field, there was a mistake for Johnny Adam, a rare mistake at that. He ran onto the grass, Nicky Thiem was able to unlap himself, and that briefly brought Rob Bell onto his tail, but then in traffic, the McLaren was delayed through the old hairpin and then through a subsequent yellow flag zone, allowing Adam to pull away and take his and the car's first British GT victory, the 5th different winner of the season in the GT3 category. Balf Motorsport rebounded from their Silverstone disaster to get a podium, whilst in GT4 it was all Mustang, with the Multimatic squad taking the outright GT4 win and the Pro-Am victory as well. A phenomenal 6th round of the championship, and next up we go on holiday to Spa in Belgium. Be sure to join us then to see who comes out on top. Well, that has been a phenomenal 2 hours of racing. The Spa round next time up is guaranteed to provide us action and entertainment as well. Another very high-speed, fast-flowing circuit. Will it suit the Aston Martins in GT3, the Mustangs in GT4, or will we maybe see some other teams starting to challenge again for race victories in the championship? It's looking good for Barwell in GT3. Whilst GT4 could not be any closer. Be sure to join us at Spa to find out who comes out on top. There are just 3 races to go now in the 2019 campaign.